Thanks for coming back to the May meeting of the Curriculum Committee of the Board. We have a few, just so everybody knows, a few extra folks up here because it's a committee. Only the four of us on the Education Committee will be voting, and the other two, Curriculum Committee, forgive me, it's been not that long since we changed, we'll be voting today to move things forward so that we're not technically a committee of the full board. What we're going to start with first today is our textbook adoptions, and I will throw it over to Dr. McGloin to get that started.
Sorry, because of the two different meetings.
Thanks for bearing with us, everyone. We're just coming from a different setup of meeting, and so things are a little different than we usually would do.
Okay.
That's the wrong, we're doing textbooks first, and we'll do kindergarten second.
All right, so the textbook,
Or actually contracts after that, it looks like.
the textbooks I can do from here. Kindergarten. Sorry.
It's a Monday, you guys.
Apologize,
All
we're
right.
a little off right now.
You ready?
I could set us up. So we have several textbooks tonight that we're asking the board to adopt at the board meeting coming up. So we'll review those textbooks with you. I have Katie Davenport, who is our K-12 science supervisor. Yes?
No.
No? And she's actually going to kick off, and then I will do all the rest of them. I'm going to pick up the math, and I'm going to do the Spanish as well. People have prior commitments, and so I got this, and I can pick them up from there. Could show?
All right, so I'm trying to figure out
Let's go over there.
Well,
We're going to try.
guess what? This is going to be quite interesting. I'm going to have to go to. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it.
What if I put it on my screen? Can I put that on my screen?
Yeah. All right. Sorry, we're going to go back to her screen.
Just give me 1 second.
Katie, did you want to start talking about it while we're trying to get the slide up on the screen?
I'd love to.
Great, thank you.
All right. So we'll start with physics. So this is the text for both college prep and honors physics. And we are recommending the Physics Classroom, which is an open educational resource. It's a digital textbook, and it has not just text, but also videos, diagrams, and interactive simulations that allows for a really wide range of differentiation that you can't necessarily find in a classic textbook. There is a feature that allows students to submit assignments to their teachers to get feedback, as well as a sort of an automatic grading process. And the text is aligned to the next generation science standards on which our new Pennsylvania Steel standards are based.
Great, do we have any questions from the board? No?
There's just one more.
Oh, we're going to do all.
The factors that we considered for this were, of course, alignment to these new standards, that it would be a way to meet the needs of multiple kinds of learners. Physics is an area where typically some students feel like they excel and others don't, so we wanted to find something that was very multimodal and had good opportunities for differentiation. And then cultural responsiveness is always something we look at, and what we liked about this resource is it allows the teacher to pick examples that might be relevant to students, allow students to use examples that might be relevant to themselves as well.
Great. Do we have any questions from the board? Oh, wait, hang on, give me 1 second.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
I was just curious if you could elaborate a little bit more on your last point, like with an example.
Sure. So my classic example of what is a physics textbook that like tries to be culturally relevant will put like a skateboard on the cover. Not all kids like skateboards. Some kids like yo-yos. Some kids like imagining pushing their brother off a cliff. You know, there's a wide variety of things that may interest students. And when you have a program that allows for teachers to curate and even edit problems to make them more relevant to students, Another teacher told me she was able to use the program to create characters with non-binary gender pronouns, which would not be found necessarily in your classic physics book.
So for these purely digital textbooks, though, I mean, if a kid wants to get their hand on a piece of paper and a chapter, these are all still readily printable,
Yes.
right? Individually, they can mark them up, they can
Yes.
look at it, like, there's no
Absolutely.
limitations on that.
Okay, my question is there a feature where you can set the text to read itself aloud?
That is a great question, and I will have to get back to you on that.
That's fantastic. It is not a deal breaker for me, but that is always something that I think is pretty fantastic to do. I also appreciate the budget line item for this, that usually 250 books would be a lot more expensive if we were buying physical copies. So I think that's great, and great that our kids aren't carrying around 500-page textbooks. Is that everybody's questions for
I
this
guess
one?
the last thing, this was all authored by whom? Who?
The name of the name of
This
the
is-
author is Tom Henderson. Can you hear me?
So it's a single person?
It's
rather
a
than
single person, yes.
consortium of-
He's a teacher. He's been working on this website for more than 20 years.
Okay.
We do use several open education resources, and we've talked about that before, but our primary ones that we use are CK12, which is some of our science. OpenStax is also science, so we have biology, chemistry, anatomy, and physiology. Our dual enrollment classes, they run through OpenStax as well, and then Open Up is integrated math 1, 2, and 3. And so we have several different programs that we use that are OER, open education resources, including this new Physics 1 will be part of it. So it is obviously less expensive because we're not buying textbooks for every single child, but we do have printing costs that are associated with it. So nothing is free, as we all know, right? So there are some costs with it, but with especially science, we like the way that it's so interactive and it changes, and you can really do some neat things, and that's why you see so many of our high school science courses have open education resources in them.
Great. Do we have any other questions, or can we move on to math? All right, math it is.
Okay, so we are recommending Desmos Math as the next primary resource for middle level math. For next school year, it'll be grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. And grade 5 is going to continue with investigations for one more year because the program actually is piloting 5th grade next year. I think we'll be part of that pilot. And then go into 5th grade math the following year. We also have math 6, 7, that's up for adoption next school year as well. We have looked at this resource as a possibility for that. In addition, it is a 2005 copyright. We piloted, actually, and we piloted the 2002, but we'll have the 2025 version. It's through Amplify. Amplify also does Dibbles, and so if you've heard Dibbles, you've heard us talk about Dibbles before, right? Amplify bought Desmos Math, and now they have this product as well. We're purchasing 1,200 licenses, and it's a big price tag, which is why we did an extensive pilot with it. So it's $245,591 total, and that's for grades 6, 7, and 8. You see the most students in grade 6, right? And then you see it go down in 7 and 8, and that's because we have students that are accelerated for mathematics, and so that's why you see those numbers look the way that they look. The other quote was very similar to this quote, just to give you an idea of how much this program or math programs cost at the middle level. The other series we looked at was Envision, which is what we currently have, and that was $235,000. So really the difference between the two programs is, when you think of how much we're spending, is not significant. So why do we choose Amplify Desmos Math? So we looked at Ed Reports, which reviews all new educational programs. And actually, in the 3 categories they review, which is focus and coherence, rigor and mathematical practice, and usability, it got the highest score it could possibly get for every single grade, every one of those areas, which is pretty cool. We did look at the top 4 different programs that they had when we started looking for programs, and they were Envision Math 2024, Open Up Math, Mid-School Math, and Desmos Math. After we reviewed those 4 programs, the committee went down to 2, which were the current one that we have, which is Envision and Desmos. From there, we piloted with 12 teachers across all of our grade levels across all of the schools. They did a month pilot each. They were trained by the programs. They came in and did a training session for our staff. Then they piloted the materials. We like this a lot. It offers both digital and paper and pencil, so it's not straight online. It's a blend of both. And then it also really translates very well into our integrated programming. And so it'll be a really nice transition between the two. So you can see that we did a whole rubric to look at the pilot, and what's in blue is Envision Math, what's in green is Desmos Math, so you could just kind of get a handle on which ones scored where. Anything less than 5 is really insignificant, 0.5. So that top row is insignificant, however, you can still see the difference. 13 of the 19 categories that we assessed favored Desmos Math. And 6 of the 7 categories with the largest difference in teacher ratings also favored Desmos Math. We didn't just decide based on the rubric, though. There was a whole series of conversations with our staff that piloted to say, are the things that were better for Envision still, should they outweigh what Desmos is? And in the end, our teachers said no. So let's just talk about strengths so that you could see the strengths with at least a 0.5 difference for Envision Math. It was video, homework help, remediation and enrichment supports, and aligning to PA standards. And then you can see Desmos Math had significantly more strengths. I just want to point out, you may say PA aligned standards, I'm worried about that, but Desmos actually aligns to the National Common Core, and then they have a bridge program to PA standards, so we're not concerned about the alignment between the product and the PA standards. In addition, we're always looking at DEIB as part of how we're assessing our materials and resources. Amplify, which is the parent company for Desmos, has expressly made a concerted effort to consider things that address equity, access, and belonging. And so you could see some really kind of cool things in there. The naming conventions, the way that they get the names for the book is they look at the most popular baby names, the year the product that the students are going to be using it. So like they'll go to the year they were born, and they pick regional and like national baby names. What I thought was really pretty cool is our students can show their work, but a lot of kids don't like to have their name attached to the work. So if a teacher projects it, they don't want to see that. And so you can anonymize the program, and what it does is it gives you a mathematician, all different kinds of mathematicians. So every child in the classroom becomes a mathematician from all different diverse backgrounds. So I might be somebody totally different that has nothing to do with me or even look like me. And then we really like the fact that it is designed to use universal design for learning. We've talked about that this year, and that is embedded into the program, including strategies for accommodations and cognitive functions. And then there's a lot of work around our English language learners that they've done as well to support those students. So from an access perspective, we really like those features in that program. So I'm going to stop because you may want to ask questions about math before I move on to Spanish.
Do we have any questions from the committee?
I have a question. So this is a new program. What's the professional development, like what's the training for the teachers? What does that
We
look
actually
like?
started some training already. One of our teachers used this program at Westchester when he taught there, and so the whole second half, after they decided what they wanted to use moving forward, we started to do some PD already for our teachers, and we'll continue to do that the end of the year, summer, and then going into the next school year as well. Desmos is new, but it's not totally new. We have actually used Desmos itself, not the textbook, but the program Desmos in the district for a while. And so our teachers are familiar with the online pieces of it. This just really blends everything together. So it's not totally new with the software, at least of it, but we will have a lot of professional development that goes along with it.
Just in terms of how much time does it take to master as a teacher, to master this kind of program too? Because it's new, I completely understand you have to learn as you go to some degree, but when do you know it?
I think mastery I think it takes a long time. I mean, I think when you ask me that question of mastery, if you're using it a bunch of years, I think you probably become a master, and some people become more masterful than other people. It's the reality of whatever product that we're using, but it's not immediate that you're mastering something, so you learn as you grow. I would say within a few years, we'll start to differentiate how we do training so that we have people that are more advanced, and then we have people, you know, that novices are always coming in, so they'll help work with that. Hopefully it'll be part of our coaching that we do going into next year as well, so that we could get into classrooms. And Jason will work on look-fors with our principals as well, so that when we're walking into classrooms and they're doing walkthroughs, they'll have a sheet that has walkthroughs and look-fors that they should see in the classroom. Our curriculum person will be in there looking with them to make sure that we're seeing what should be implemented in the classroom. That all takes us to a place of mastery, but it does take time for that to happen.
I have one more question. This is in relation to just any digital resource. So is the expectation that every student would be accessing it on their own, you know, district-provided device? Or, you know, because my thought about it is having something that you can actually flip back and forth and not scroll back and forth, I think, because it's very distracting to be constantly using the screen. I'm wondering what the expectation is.
So this is a blended program, and I meant to bring down, I have materials in my office, but every student gets workbooks. So every year we get new workbooks for the students, not a textbook, but workbooks. So it's a blend of digital online and paper and pencil, which the teachers really liked about it. That was part of really the grab for it, because it wasn't just totally online. It was a blend of both, because I think you're right. It's not just about the screen time. It's in between both. We expect students, when they're using the program, to be on our computers using the program.
Okay. Thanks.
Go for it.
Thanks. Just to circle back on one of Abby's questions, how many hours of training will the teachers get on this product before the end of the year? And then how many hours of training do they get before they start to use it next year?
So we'll have some more training before the end of the school year. Probably won't be any more than 6 hours, I would say, just because of our schedule and what we have still left from a training perspective. They'll also get training in the beginning of the school year, and we'll offer sessions this summer as well.
Got it. And then how, is there an additional cost for the 5th grade version when it's not piloted? So on top of the $250, what's the additional cost?
We don't have the cost for it yet, because it's a new program and it's not actually, it's not available yet. But there will be a cost associated with it. For certain, there'll be a cost associated with it. Right now, what we've done is we have a 6-year license for the current program that we have in place. And so we're just extending that license for 1 more year until this product becomes available or we choose something else.
In 5th grade?
In 5th grade only. And actually, our elementary math program it's up for adoption as well, and this will be available K-8. Not saying that's the direction that we'll choose, but it'll definitely be something that we consider. From a continuity standpoint, it makes a lot of sense for that to happen. So, you know, you're going to see come across your desk the 3 and 4, and then we'll back up and go K1, 2 as well. And so, yes, there is a cost associated with it next year.
So it's $250,000 for 3 grades. It does training come with that, or is it that 6 hours of training, is that considered their training too? Thanks. Yeah.
It's $249,
Thank you. That's what I was gonna ask.
$999.95.
So $245 for 6 years. That was the duration. That's what I was going for next.
So it's a 6-year license. When I say for 6 years, almost everything at this point comes with a 6-year license.
Okay.
Like, we used to buy a textbook and you would just have it, right? There was not a digital license that came with it. But now, whatever we buy has digital subscriptions associated with it. And so traditionally, every company comes with a 6-year license, no matter who we go with. And that's why you hear me say something like we're extending the license for another year. We do that often, just because we're not ready to buy something after the 6th year. So we may go a year, sometimes we go 2 or 3 years, but that's why you see that 6-year license. It's that extension of that.
Got it. And then I guess my question, and you might not really be able to answer this, but so often we talk about in curriculum over the last 2 years, on-ramps and off-ramps with math. So kids aren't locked into a track and then never can take calculus in college, even though if they find out later that they actually realize that they love math and science, they get blocked from it. So how does this work within the on-ramps and off-ramps? And then knowing that you're transitioning, you're retiring from the district, who will be the key point person for when we have this conversation in September?
Jason Lilly,
Got it.
who couldn't be here today. His daughter graduated from college this weekend, and so I felt like excusing him from the board meeting was really important. But he will be the point person for this. On-ramps and off-ramps will not change because of the product. They're still there. We have on-ramps and off-ramps beginning going into 5th grade. So 4th to 5th grade, we have a bridge program. 5th to 6th, we have a bridge program. We have our 7-8 class in school. We have another high school bridge. So we have multiple ways for you to go on and off of our math programming. The product that we use really doesn't have an impact on those on-ramps and off-ramps. What I like about this product, though, is that it speaks really well to our integrated math 1, 2, and 3 from the delivery model of instruction, which is important. I mean, it's really important that our students see that. That is a really nice transition for us, but the on-ramps and off-ramps won't be impacted by the purchase. Thank you. Yeah.
Just a quick question. Big picture-wise, do we as a district, is there a specific time period where we look at our curriculum and we evaluate them for all the different grades? And, sorry.
Yeah, so we have a curriculum cycle that we have in place, a 6-year cycle that we use, and then on top of that, we have a textbook piece of it built in, and so there's a textbook renewal part of it, and we have that. We try to balance it so that we're not adopting any huge purchases altogether, and so that you see it pretty flat as far as financing is concerned for the board. And so we look at it every single year to make sure that we try to be on top of what needs to be adopted, but also that we pretty are flat as far as spending is concerned. Things come up, and sometimes we have to go off cycle, so I'll use the steels as an example, right? PA steels are our new science standards. We have new assessments that are coming in as well with those standards, and so we'll be really looking at resources and materials, even if they're not on schedule, because they have to be on schedule so that we're aligning to the new standards. So things like that happen that take us off of our path, but we do have a path for it.
So generally speaking, it's every 6 years, so that's in line with the purchase of this?
Yes.
Okay, that's why I just wanted to make sure that it was
Yeah.
in line with our cycles so that we're not cutting it short and not using the full 6 years.
But it doesn't mean that after 6 years we decide to adopt either, right?
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
But at least it gives us that 6 years.
It
Thank you.
does, yeah.
So my question, looking at this and looking at our last textbook, is when you do the math, that physics textbook is about $20 a license, and this one's about $200 a license. I am guessing that it is because it's an individual versus a large company, and because it's all digital versus having physical workbooks. Is that the only difference in cost, or what accounts for that?
It's because the first textbook is an open education resource. And open education resources were created to provide access to anybody. So it didn't matter if your district had money to be able to purchase resources or not. But they're not all equal. I mean, I think science does a really nice job with open education resources, and that's why we see a lot of our science textbooks be OER. But not everything's there. And so you won't necessarily see that in an elementary level. You may not see it. We do have integrated 1, 2, and 3 that way, but it's not what we're looking at from a product perspective of what's best for our kids. But so open education resources were created with the idea that anybody could have access no matter if they had funds or not. And that's the
So
difference.
basically, this is the standard, and the open education resources is just a bonus that it's financed that way.
It's great if it happens, right? Like I said, I think you said 20 years of the author of the physics textbook was working on it to get it to happen. And so I think it's wonderful if it happens, but it's not always equal. And so we would never recommend something just because it's free if it's not a good product for us, right? This math book that we're recommending, it has great scores. The DEIB is really great behind it. It works really well with our integrated program. So I know it's expensive, and often when we do wholesale adoptions like a math or an elementary reading program, they're expensive.
number,
They're
yeah.
just expensive. But there's nothing out there that we feel would be good enough to bring to the board from an open education perspective.
Okay. Okay, go for it.
So being that it's a 6-year license, do we receive all the materials year one for the 6 years, or do we receive materials every year?
It's a really good question that I don't know the answer to. It depends, so I can find out, but I'm not sure. I hope we don't receive them all at once because there's a storage issue when that happens, but it's possible. I'd have to find out the answer, and I can't.
And then looking specifically at the quote, it looks like each grade level includes the teacher blended package, the student blended package, And then all three grade levels, 6, 7, and 8, include the grade 6 algebra kit? Is that correct, that grade 7 and 8 should receive the grade 6 manipulative kit? More of a technical question.
Yeah, it's a
Or
good,
should
but
they
it's a very
receive
good question.
the grade 7 manipulative kit and the grade 8 manipulative
It
kit?
may be the same thing for all three grades. Often you'll see something like that, but I'd have to ask Jason that question, so I can ask and then get back to you about that.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, my last question about it, and I'm 100% serious about this, the shipping and handling costs of $13,000. This company is located in Brooklyn, New York. Are the books shipped from Brooklyn, New York?
Most likely.
Can we rent a U-Haul? I will volunteer to drive it and
we said
pick
we'd go
up
with her.
the books. 13,000 is a lot of money to ship from
We can
Brooklyn
work
to
to try to
here.
get that down. I always say that my admin, Lisa, if I was going to need to buy anything, I always ask her to do it because she works and gets prices like I've never seen. She'll even ask me if she could go back again, and my answer, of course, is always yes. So we can work to try to get that down.
Okay.
Yeah, we can try.
It just seems like a
Yeah,
whole lot of money for shipping
We
from New
can
York.
try. It's a possibility for sure. So let me see
I
what we
will
can do.
volunteer.
I will set my,
We'll call
admin on it,
Oldest,
see
we'll
what
get some
happens.
of those bus drivers to put them on the seats.
You'd be surprised at how much is gonna come, though. I know I hear you saying that, but
Yeah.
think about 1,200 students, 12, like, it's like pallets of stuff.
Running the hall.
But let me see, we'll try.
May I just respond to that as I'm looking at it? It looks like that's it's also reflected as a discount, so it does.
Oh, yes,
So
total
the
price
total
is
price is
$0. They're not actually charging us.
Never mind, no road trip.
Thank you, Lisa, she obviously did it
You
already.
can still take a road trip if you want.
Okay, I think that's good, everybody's good with that one?
I just had I know we're running some, but who's doing the teaching of the teachers on this? Is this teachers teaching each other, or does the package come with a module that then we deploy? Like,
Yeah.
how is this actually?
So training is part of this, but
Yeah.
we also have a teacher that is one of their trainers as one of our employees. Was not the reason we chose the program, so please understand that. I just want to put that out there, but he actually works for the company as well. So we're fortunate because that's who provided some of our training already. But there is also training as part of the package.
Okay. And are the current teachers and the program chairs, given that we're already into May and we're talking, are the current teachers and the program chairs confident that they're going to be sufficiently trained to be effective in administering this curriculum starting in September?
They are, yeah.
So of the 1 day of training that is part of the contract, have we used any portion of that yet?
None of it.
Okay.
Nope. We haven't even signed the contract because we will not sign the contract until the board approves it. So this is for you to move forward. So nothing in here we've actually used. They did provide training for our staff already, but that was free as part of the pilot.
Great. We ready to move on to Spanish? All right, Spanish.
AP textbook. You've heard me say this multiple times, there are not many choices for AP textbooks. We all know that, right? But this textbook, TMIS AP for Spanish, we actually use the French version at both of our high schools, and they really like the program a lot. And so that was part of the whole thought process with this being moved forward. So we're looking at 2 class sets of paper text at Lower Marion High School, 1 at Harriton High School. I know those numbers are a little different. Remember, IB's at Harriton, so we see students go into IB instead of the AP class there. And our enrollment's a little different as well. This is also a 6-year subscription. You heard me say that. You'll see that over and over again. That's just the way that it works. So it is a 6-year digital subscription that goes along with it. The total purchase cost for it is $24,989.95. This actually will come, even though we're adopting it now, July 1 is when we'll actually purchase the text. This comes from next year's budget. The last item came from this current year's budget, if that makes sense.
Questions?
Oh, wait, do you want me to
No.
keep going? I'm almost done, I swear. There's not a lot of slides on this one. But, so, we had 2 teachers review it because there are AP teachers. We had other people in the department look at it as well, just from a continuity standpoint. So why we decided to go with it, it's fully aligned to AP themes, it has audio, video, and assessment tools. It allows for teacher-student communication, student-to-student communication, and it provides student and teachers with online support. Like everything else, we look at our culturally responsive scorecard, and we're looking at it from a DEIB lens. Many of our language teachers in both of the high schools are on both of the DEIB leadership teams in their schools, and they also are in teacher-led groups that have been working since last summer in each building. The goal of the World Language Department is to examine and revisit curriculum resources to represent diverse voices and wide historical and cultural perspectives. The teachers really felt like this supported what they were looking for. It had the highest rating on our culturally responsive scorecard, as well as meeting the AP themes. So you can read a couple of the feedback, little quotes from our teachers, but really excellent resource that gives, it gives opportunities to highlight the strengths and assets of non-dominant groups and to explore rich cultural diversity in Spanish-speaking world while allowing the students to compare their rich cultural diversity in their own worlds. And so our teachers really did feel like it was strong. Questions on that?
Questions? Patty?
I have a question. The TAMAS book, what year is that from?
It's going to be, it's a current one. It's
A current year.
Yeah, copyright's 2024.
And what do we have currently?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I can find out for you for sure. Yep. I do know that we looked 3 years ago and we're not really impressed. And so we just did something to just stay the water because we were waiting for this resource to get updated and become the newer version. And that's why it's in front of us today. 3 years ago, we looked and really were not enamored with anything we saw. Yeah.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Sorry. When you say that, what are other districts doing then? Sort of like, is everyone just treading water until something else comes out? Or like, are other districts using other books that we're not aware of? Or?
There's only, so your AP pretty much dictates what you could choose to look at. It's not like there's a wide variety out there. It's dictated by AP. So either they're using this book in an older version or a different resource at AP also. Yeah. Agrees with me.
Did the AP framework change for this?
No,
And the AP tests stay the same? I mean, I know it
Yeah.
tweaks each year, but it's generally the same.
generally the same for this.
So then how long have we been using the textbook that we're currently using?
3 years. And it was
that's
just
it.
honestly, it wasn't, we didn't spend money on it. We just did something to keep us going until we felt like we had a better solution to it.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask the question on the table that nobody will ask. Do we have to change the textbook? It feels like 3 years and it's the same test, same framework. Why do I feel like I'm missing something?
We were just treading water. It's not like we had a really great resource. We were waiting for this to come about, and that's the reason that we're recommending changing it.
I'm sorry, is it we had a 6-year book and then we extended that book for 3 years, or we bought a new book 3 years ago and it's pretty meh, and so we're abandoning it before?
We don't have a license anymore. It's up.
Oh, okay.
It's up.
We only bought a 3-year
Yes,
license.
it's
Okay.
up, and we need to either continue on or move on.
Okay, I
And
think
we
that was the
really
clarifying. Nobody wanted to
yeah,
pay twice.
We did not want to continue on. It was truly just to allow us to like,
Wait the 3 years.
yeah, that's what it was for. And so
Perfect.
it was purposeful the way that it was done.
Okay, so, for this part, that was the last one, right?
Yes, the last
Okay.
one.
So for members of this committee, we're good to recommend this for approval to the full board?
I have one other question. Okay, go, sorry. This is both with this and then the other, anything that has a digital component, I'm just curious, because with the physics one, I think you said that you can take the tests via, they're like testing available via digital service. What happens to the data?
We own the data. It's district,
ours?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Just curious.
Yep. No, it's a good question.
Great question. Committee's good moving it forward? Yes? Yes, yes, yes? Fantastic. Okay, we are good moving this forward to the full board for recommendation for approval, and we'll go on to contracts next.
You want me to? So some of you may notice that, as we mentioned before, Sarah, there was more contracts up on the list prior to today. We're changing the contract process, and there was just some mistakes that we're learning through, nothing major, just, some things are marked complete that aren't. What you see in front of you are ready for board approval, and so that's why you see the contracts that are in front of you. There will be several more contracts for the board to approve over the next couple months that are digital licenses that just are not ready to go. What I can do is provide in a board update just a list of what you'll be seeing over the next couple months if you'd like me to do that, but we're not ready for it to actually, all of them to come to the full board, but you know that we use a lot of the software in the district, and so anything over $7,500 that is not a 3-year contract needs reapproval every single year, and so you're gonna see a bunch of those come in front of you over the next couple months. Tonight, we have 4 contracts that are on the agenda. The first one is Delta Math. This shouldn't be new. It is a renewal contract that we've had in the district for a while. It's for grades 6 through 12, and it is a site license for all 5 of our schools for Delta Math. And so what Delta Math is like a diagnostic that we use in mathematics, and then based on the assessment, we could differentiate and give students activities and practice and just help shore up their math skills. And so that's $9,108. And again, this is one that we've used in the district for a while. It's not new to the district. So that's Delta Math, yep.
Just curious, with going forward with Desmus Math, is there still a need for Delta for grades 6 through 8?
Yes. Yeah, it's 6 to 12, and we have other programs at the high school level as well. It honestly is different activities and just gives us more practice problems, and so we would recommend to keep it in place. Plus, the diagnostic is really nice because that allows us to go in and look at how a student's doing on something and give them separate assignments, so it does a little bit more than what we would see with a product like Delta Math that's like a textbook product.
Any other questions? Do we want to, I think we can go thumbs up to move forward after each one, yeah? Good? Abby, you good? Good? Yep, okay, we'll move this one forward.
So Schoolmint is actually like an add-on for Power School. What it lets us do is it's the Tardy software for all 5 of our secondary schools. So it lets us.
The what software?
Tardy, it lets us mark students tardy, like to school. And so this is the software that goes like the add-on for Power School. We've had it again. It's a renewal. The renewal is $10,771.65. It actually comes from the buildings. We just consolidate so that you see it. If not, you wouldn't know that it happens in 5 buildings because they all pay something under $7,500. And we really try to consolidate so the board can see what we're paying for.
And we're legally required to record tardiness, correct? Yeah. But did you have a? Go for
Sorry,
it.
go ahead. You go ahead.
So we don't use Power School to track tardies?
So we do, but this allows us to do it within Power School. It's like an additional,
Power
the
School
add-on
has the
stuff.
capability with just Power School to do that.
This is
So I'm
the
wondering
add-on.
why we have an extra program for
Yeah,
it.
this is the add-on that goes into Power School to make it happen.
Okay. The
Yeah.
basic Power School has that ability.
I'm
No.
not sure. We've used, this is the add-on since I've been here. So
Okay.
I'm not sure that you could do it without this, or we would be doing it without it, I would assume.
So is this then embedded into Power School?
Nobody knows we have it. Like, they just mark them tardy and it shows
Okay.
up. Yeah.
I mark tardies for kids all the time in
Yeah.
my school, and we
You
don't have
mean-
an additional.
Yeah, you wouldn't,
I'm
our
just
teachers
wondering.
wouldn't know. They don't like mark it in Schoolmint, they mark it in Power School. So nobody would know that it's there. It's on the back end side of it.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question. I feel like I've asked this like last year and maybe the year before that. It always feels like there's a million little $10,000 one-offs. And thinking about how, we go into budget and we wanna put our money in the best pots possible, do we ever stop and look like from the balcony at all these pieces and add them up? Because when we talk about, we have to cut things because we don't have enough money or something like that comes up, some of these feel like overkill or overuse. We have this math program for $260,000, and on top of that, we have this special math thing. I'm not saying that they're not useful, but it's just hard for us to see over here kind of what's the scope and how are these pieces working together? And are there any redundancies? So what is the team that kind of like analyzes this as an audit and says, you've got some redundancies here? Does that happen?
Yeah, yes, so we have a list of all the products that we use, and we do look for redundancies. I'll give you a good example. So Nuzella, right, is something that we've been evaluating as a district, and it's not on here yet because we're not sure we're actually going to recommend using it moving forward. We believe that through our library subscriptions, we may be able to do something very similar to that, and it's pricey. So we're looking at usage reports, we're looking at are there other products that we already own that could do it instead, so we do evaluate on a regular basis. But that's just like an example of something that's happening right now to say, do we not need this anymore? We could save the district money. And we could do something else that will still be just as valuable, maybe not that product, but something just as valuable. And so when we meet with vendors, we'll ask them for usage reports. We dive deep into it to say, is this something we want to continue? We also have tech integrators as well. Everything that goes through the contract process has their eyes on it, it has my eyes on it, it has Dr. Gaudioso's eyes on it, and our curriculum team's eyes on it, so that we're making sure that we have that view, that high-level view of all the products that we have.
I think what might be helpful too is if we organize these by categories and say this is all the expenses that goes in on a 5-year cycle, or even like average it and then this is what the year is like. So for mathematics, for the middle school level, these are all the components, special, small, and so we can see the real impact of the cost instead of kind of like walking through piece by piece. But just a thought, because it is hard to look at these and have a thoughtful conversation when we don't see the integration opportunities and how it really works.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I have a question, or, well, I'm curious. Is it possible that we can check out what Sarah has said in reference to Power School being able to mark students who are late? I mean, like, that seems like we're spending a lot to just, you know, you said $7,000 per school or per something?
No.
It was $10,000
$10,000 for
the
5
district.
schools.
That's a lot of money for, to say somebody's like late, like, that's.
I'm happy to do that. Yes, I'm happy to do that, for sure. Yep. Sure.
Okay, so do we still want to recommend that for adoption?
I'm like on the fence in reference to that, because I think that's a lot of money to be spending to just say someone is late. I mean, it should be a more efficient way and a less costly way to document that information if it's so significant. Like, if that is a state law that you have to say, oh, this person was late today.
Tardies we report.
Well, your PDE had.
Yeah, tardies we report, yes. State law, yes.
But why?
Why?
As the law says.
Well, because think about it this way. I'm going to say, like, think about it this way. Let's say that a student misses first period 50 times during the school year, right? Would we would want to track that. We want to be able to say to a parent, your child has missed this class 50 times. This is why the grade is where it is. This is why we're having whatever it is, because there's a direct correlation between school attendance and student achievement, right? And so we would absolutely want to track something like that, so we had knowledge of it happening, for sure.
I agree to a certain point, but I think that there has to be a less expensive way to track that information. Like, that's a lot of money.
So we have a facilities meeting coming up. Between now and the facilities meeting, I will triple check to make sure that it's necessary, okay? Does that sound like a plan?
It's reviewed.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so it can get reviewed again, and we'll table that for bringing forward for next time. Okay, so next contract?
EduLink, I don't know which one I'm going in order of, but we have EduLink, because they're all next to each other, I'm sorry. But EduLink is PAETAP. PAETAP is our evaluation software that we use for teachers and we use for administrators. 3-year contract, our contract was up, our 3 years is up. We're doing another 3-year contract for them. It's actually a really great program. They directly work with PDE, and so it speaks to the reports that are necessary at the state level. It uses the Danielson domains, which we use to evaluate our staff, we're able to have our differentiated cycles as a part of it. We're able to put in custom forms, which we do, because we have goal setting for our professional staff as well as our administrators, and so those reports are in there. We can track the whole entire evaluation cycle for our employees, professional employees and administrators. That's what this program is for.
Is this like professional evaluation or like the actual teacher performance part of their job? Like, I'm not clarifying, like the job as in like you go and you show up for work and you participate in all the things you're required to do versus how successful you are at teaching.
So the domain for Danielson includes part of that. That fourth domain in Danielson is called professional responsibilities, and all the things that you're talking about fall into that fourth domain, which does get evaluated, and it gets evaluated through the system. And domain 1 is your planning and preparation, right? And then 2 and 3 are like what happens in the classroom. That's for a classroom teacher. When we talk about a counselor, or we talk about a nurse, or we talk about a curriculum person, there's different evaluation instruments that we use for them, but they still are based on 4 domains. And so it's both. I wouldn't say it's one or the other, it's both. We have to memorialize what we're seeing, and that happens through EduLink, but like we do walkthroughs to this. So it's not necessarily a formal evaluation that I'm sitting in a classroom or somewhere and taking notes. It could be that I walk in for a little while, I make some notes on what I see when I'm there for 10 minutes, and it goes in there as well. In addition to that, it's our goal setting. So our professional staff all sets goals, learning target goals as well as their own professional goals. You know, we have a DEIB goal this year that they all set as well. They set a goal around professional learning communities. That document's in there. Our principals and our supervisors also have goal setting. That's a part of that too. So it's really more comprehensive than only the data that has to go to the state, although it does keep and house that for us, but it's bigger than that.
So does it also sort of provide, I know teachers love rubrics, is it basically like a job rubric for our teachers to sort of give them a guideline for what's expected of them in their job?
So the Danielson rubric is in there, and the Danielson rubric has domains as part of it, which I guess it's job expectations. It's what should we see both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, right, is what it is. And it's a rubric, and you can be distinguished, proficient, needs improvement, or failing.
Yeah,
And that's what, and every section of the rubric as well. So it's not like one, domain 1 does get an overall score, but then there's modules in the domains that you mark.
Like the report
that.
card?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only trying to drill down because it's a large number and it affects a large number of our staff. And so it felt like important to hash out. Does
Yeah.
anybody else have questions about this program?
I just have a quick question. Do we use Frontline for anything?
We
in the
do.
district? What do we
do.
use Frontline for?
We use it for 2 things. It's professional development. So when any professional development that we're running in the district, we have a catalog that goes out and it tracks all our professional development, including the evaluations that go with professional development and attendance that goes with professional development. And then in addition to that, we use it for absences. Now it's part of it. What ASAP was. It's all part of the same system anymore.
Okay. Have we
Although the
looked into
contracts come
using
up
it?
separately, even though it's the same company.
Have we ever looked into using it for teacher evaluations? I know they have that part of the program too.
3 years ago, we evaluated several different programs. We had nothing. For about 2 years, we had nothing. And so we evaluated several different programs. I guess it was probably 4 years ago at this point in time. And really liked PE-ETEP the best. And it served us well over the last 3 years. So there's no real reason to move away from it. It's a new interface coming in July. It's pretty exciting, the new interface. I spent time in it recently. And but because it translates so well to the state, it's just easier to use because of that. But we did evaluate several different programs and liked this one better.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, does anybody else have questions? No? Is the committee good moving this forward for recommendation for adoption? Yes? Okay, great. We will recommend that going forward. Is that all of our contracts? Or do
The
we have
last one is
more?
just Desmos, which you've heard all about with the textbooks. It's just,
Okay,
that's
so,
what it is.
yeah, we
Desmos.
approve
Yep.
that one moving forward. All right, then we will get to what everybody is super excited. Okay, go for it.
I'm just curious, Dreambox, where does that sit? Because I've heard of it, it's a lot.
Elementary. It's
But it's a math curriculum, like what is it?
elementary, it's math. It is math. It's, if you're thinking of
It's my kid's favorite thing.
Delta Math, similar, but at a different level. Like Delta Math is 6th through 12th grade. Yeah.
So it's K through 4,
5, I think we use it through.
K through 5. So isn't there another math curriculum?
Is it like an IXL?
Well, we use IXL as well. Different reasons, though. IXL is typically what we're using from an intervention standpoint. And so not every single student has a license for that, right? Because we
For
have different
IXL or
programs.
for Dreambox?
For IXL.
For IXL, okay.
Yeah,
Everybody has Dreambox, right?
Right.
yeah.
Dreambox
Yep,
is-
yep. mhm.
It's applied through the library
Universal,
system.
Yeah.
So essentially, just so because I'm thinking about Dr. Sotner's question, so part of the reason we have so many similar programs is for differentiation? Is that a fair thing to say? Or, because it does feel very redundant.
Yeah, it could be grade span, right? So sometimes different programs are created for different grade spans. So you'll see something more elementary than a secondary. So it could be something like that. It could be used for different tiers of instruction. And so you may see something like when I say like an IXL isn't necessarily universal for all kids because we use it more at a tier 2 level where students need additional support. And so you'll see some things like that, that the price is lower because we don't have subscriptions for every single student in the district, so it could be something like that. So yes to the differentiation question when you think of it that way, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to the presentation that everyone has been super pumped for. I know I am. We're going to hear all about what's coming up for Universal Full Day Kindergarten.
I'll stand behind you here just so I can move the slides along, but we're excited to talk about Universal Full Day Kindergarten. I think we've done some really great work since the last time we've spoken to the school board about it. And so with me, I have Dr. Dory Martin-Pertone, who is our elementary humanities supervisor. We have Katie Davenport, who is our K-12 science supervisor, and we have Dr. Jennifer Gaudioso, who is our director of elementary education. Really, this is a huge team effort. It's not happening because of one person in the district. It happens because of our teachers, our principals, our team that you see in front of you. So we're excited to begin by showing you the full day kindergarten video that was created for both our students and our staff. I'm crossing my fingers that it works. We need to give a big, huge thanks to Amy Buckman and her team, Dan Kapkin, especially as well, because they created the video for us, went into the schools. You'll hear Amy in the background. I think I heard she should be professional today. And I was like, she was professional. That's the reason it sounds so great. So let's see if I could get this to work. I have to sign in. This is like a catastrophe today. I'm working on it. How can I sign in on Google Drive?
If I click on the image and the little.
There we go. No, I didn't show. I don't know why this is doing it.
Full-day universal kindergarten is coming to Lower Merion in September
He's got it.
2024.
No, it's not.
It's new, it's exciting.
It's not showing. Denise, do you move it?
Why you were in that? Wait, can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Technical difficulties tonight.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can you escape out of that? Escape out of the presentation.
Full-day universal kindergarten.
Hit that and escape out of the presentation, and then I can go back into it.
All right, you can just close it. Right here. Mike's coming up.
Is he?
He should be.
This is why I don't like videos. I'm the person that says no videos every time because
But it's not showing on the screen.
it won't, when I have to PDF it, it won't show up in Board Docs. Okay, so that's one thing. And then on, again, I always ask for no videos, but nobody listens to me.
Full-day universal kindergarten is coming to
It's my
Lower
curse.
Merion in September 2024. It's new, it's exciting, but we know you may have lots of questions. In this video, we'll try to answer some of them by looking at a typical kindergarten day. Kindergarten students who ride the bus to school sit up front near the driver.
I ride the bus.
What's that like?
It's fun because I get to talk with my friends who sit next to me. I ride the bus and like all of my friends are just like automatically like know where I am. But I'm always at the second row.
Mornings usually start with a classroom check-in and morning meeting or circle time, which helps students get to know one another and create a classroom community.
And don't this little thing on the board when we first get in there? We slide our name here or here. So we put our name, if we're absent, it's going to stay in the absent spot, but if we are, we put it in the zero spot. And we don't put those bags away. We do morning meeting, so we can count how much days we've had in school. Like we have 22 more days, and we do like calendar.
The rest of the morning can include fine motor skills, humanities, and WIN time. WIN stands for What I Need, and it's time when students can get one-on-one attention. Humanities include English language arts, reading, and social studies.
Finally, I went home, I picked my tooth out.
I did that all by myself.
How do you feel?
Good.
Yeah?
Then it's time for lunch and recess. In the afternoon, there's time for math and STEM, incorporating play-based learning that allows students to apply their knowledge in fun and creative ways.
And these are all native plants, guys, so these will attract all the bugs
And butterflies.
and butterflies that are native to this area.
What's your favorite thing to do in school?
Probably math center. I'm much better at math than like words. That's what my mom says. Me and my mom is opposite. When she was a kid, she never did math that well. And when I'm a kid, I can do math really fast.
Hey, nice work. Good mathematicians check their work.
The extended day allows time for social studies, science aligned with the new Pennsylvania STEEL standards, and additional specials such as art, physical education, music, and library. What's your favorite part of the day in kindergarten? What parts of the day do you like?
When we go to gym.
You like gym class? What kinds of things do you do in gym?
We play topics and we play hockey.
Afternoons can be rounded out with more physical activity or read aloud time, and then students pack up to go home. Each day is designed to help students learn the academic and social skills they'll need to be ready for first grade and beyond.
So our kids did a great job on that video, didn't they? They're just so sweet. But we wanted to give a picture for the community of what full day kindergarten will look like. It'll be live tomorrow. Tomorrow after our meeting, our website, you'll see some more pictures of it later on. The presentation is going to go live, and this will be up with it as part of it. We also intend to do a podcast and send something out to families as well, just as a follow-up communication for it. So you've seen this before. Just to put it back up, we are on track. We're doing everything that we said within the time frame. Curriculum writing really began a while ago because we're not looking to create a whole new program. What we're looking to do is truly enhance. We have done site visits, and we've heard over and over again through the site visits, it's not about pushing 20,000 more things in there. It's really getting the time to do justice to the curriculum that we currently have. And so we've been enhancing our curriculum that exists. Steel standards, you heard me say before, are new. And so that is new curriculum, but that's pretty much the only real new curriculum that's being written. You'll hear a little bit more about that during the presentation. Furniture and supplies are still being finalized because we're looking at our section counts, and so we'll have all that purchased as July 1 because it's part of the next budget, but it is budgeted for, and we have what we need. We just need to know how much we need of everything at this point in time. So why universal full-day kindergarten in a general sense? We really feel strongly about vision and time equal opportunity, right? And so if we have the shared vision where we're student-centered and highly engaged, and there's problem solving and reflection, and we give students time, that time, right, to be able to master those foundational skills, really there's going to be an opportunity then, right, for our students to engage in rigorous curriculum that has inquiry involved with a differentiation and social, emotional, and play-based learning. So we feel like it's essential for the success of our students. So since the last time that we talked, E's underneath purpose, sorry about that, but the last time that we talked, since then, our big kindergarten team that we had sunsetted, and now we had a kindergarten advisory team, which was really an internal team in the school district. And that team came together. It was comprised of kindergarten teachers, specialists, special educators, curriculum, and special education supervisors and principals. And the team came together really with the idea of being an advisory team for us to decide a whole child approach for students. Really, we're looking through the lens of providing goals for best practices, and you'll see that as we move on. What we decided on, guidance for schedule articulation, and that was vetted several times over, and in any implementation challenges we needed to think about and what solutions could we have. Professional learning, they gave us a lot of input on what that might look like, and community and family engagement is a really big piece of it. Our feedback loop for this team really included regular agenda items on the principal and cabinet meetings, work with our facility staff and elementary teachers, and regular teachers updated through our advisory team, so they turned it around back in their buildings what was happening, so that we had that loop of ongoing communication through district level, through the advisory team, through the principals, and so that communication loop was a piece of it. You know, like for instance, the schedule articulation went through many iterations and had input from both our staff and our principals, and so really we put a lot of thought into it through the discussions. So, thoughtful and intentional planning. We really wanted to see what was out there before we made any decisions, and so we did site visits both in person and virtual. We went to Westchester and Radnor. Virtually, we had multiple connections with Upper Dublin and Garden Valley as well, just to understand how they were running their full day K programs and talk about what we might want to see. Our takeaways were optimization of instructional minutes, the consideration of maybe splitting lunch and recess because it's a big block of time for students, and so maybe if we split it up, it'll give them more breaks during the day. Separate free play from the standards aligned purposeful play. We're going to talk about what purposeful play is in a little bit, but free play, think of it as like a recess time, right? That's separate from the idea of a purposeful play. Be really intentional about how science and social studies were incorporated into the purposeful play, even using rubrics to check learning for students as a part of it. And then our staff loved OT skills, and we saw it in several of our buildings. The writing the students were able to accomplish because of these OT boxes that they had was amazing, and so we know we want to incorporate that as well. That was a huge takeaway for us. From an instructional standpoint, use of explicit prompts, academic vocabulary, teacher-facilitated learning. You heard me say rubrics already, but that's what we were thinking about. And then right now, because of the timing of our half-day kindergarten, we can't do what I need, but it's something that we really felt like was essential moving into a full-day program. And I just mentioned what I need. So when we highlight full-day kindergarten, I have actually schedules I'll pass out to you so you could see it because it's really small, but we really thought about our instructional minutes and what does that look like. This is not in order, but we do start the day with morning meeting, and it's the first thing up there, right? So morning meeting and that fine motor skill boot camp is in the beginning of the day. Outside of that, it could be any time during the day. This is not meant to be like the schedule for any building. Really, the schedule is dependent on the building size and when specialists are available. And so you'll see some of the things at different places. It's about the building and how they can structure it versus the district level when we come to what the real day looks like. But the instructional minutes will be consistent across every single one of the buildings. And so addition to what we currently have, based on this articulated schedule, are that fine motor skills and activities win, which is what I need time, where we can personalize instruction for our students to meet their unique needs. It allows for reinforcement, it allows for support, it allows for enrichment during that time. And so that's built into the new schedule. Purposeful play is also built into the new schedule, and we're looking at incorporating science really into that. And then specials will be 45 minutes, and all of our specials, our students in kindergarten will have the same specials as every other grade. 45 minutes felt like long to some people, but everywhere we talked to actually had longer than 45 minutes, and they said it was fine, it wasn't a problem. We asked that question several ways. So we feel confident in that time span for that group.
Our current programming for literacy includes the components that you see on the slide. One of the beautiful things about the full-day program is that our students will be able to expand upon what they learn and apply that learning in authentic literacy language experiences. So we will also be able to, Dr. McGloin mentioned the win time. If students need to be challenged or even they need to strengthen any of these areas of the different parts of literacy, we can use that win time to intentionally target that area and give them what they need so they continue on their day with that learning. It's also another opportunity where we can increase vocabulary acquisition and that cross-curricular learning in terms of their oral expression and the listening, speaking skills. Because often, especially as we know with the younger learners, that importance of talk, where they show their evidence of thinking through their oral language. So can we switch to the next one? Kindergarten humanities, this will also give us the time, we will be able to honor the daily integration of these cross-curricular experiences. And this is the part of the day, to the right you see the civics standards for kindergarten, they're the PA core standards. We'll be able to focus on the concepts of community and building belonging in a really thoughtful and meaningful way. They'll learn about the different roles in the community, the different types of communities, and the people who comprise them. We emphasize the importance of empathy, kindness, giving, and understanding differences. This occurs now, but it'll give us time to go deeper into that application across the curriculum. We also use mentor texts and interactive read-aloud lessons to focus upon the basic concepts of respect, citizenship, responsibility, fairness, trustworthiness, and caring. And we can, again, have those conversations and speaking and listening where the students can truly share their thoughts and concerns and ideas.
In kindergarten, we will also have increased time for math and science, and seeing STEM in action. In kindergarten math, children will have the opportunity to engage in rich, meaningful tasks. You see some examples of some kinesthetic tasks. There will be discussions in math as well as basic numeracy that's appropriate for those students. Math instruction is really focused on students being able to think creatively, to envision multiple solutions to problems, and to articulate those problem strategies. Our science instruction is we're excited to be able to build it directly to the new Pennsylvania STEELS standards. That's science, technology, engineering, environmental literacy, and sustainability. And we're working with both our kindergarten curriculum team as well as our STEM specialists to do that. And what's going to be really unique about how we do science is it's going to be embedded with the purposeful play. So we identified 4 really engaging, kid-friendly questions based on the kindergarten science standards. And we are going to design purposeful play experiences that help students to engage in those concepts. So that will be combined with some more, I won't say traditional science instruction, but more typical science instruction. And we'll see the kids read about science, write about science, play about science to get toward those standards.
So one thing we're really excited about bringing into our kindergarten program is the idea of play and playful learning. And I think for many, when we picture play, we may be picturing something more like recess or free play, and trying to think of what is the place of that in the classroom. So what makes it purposeful in the classroom is an intended learning target. So while the students may be engaged in purposeful play, the idea that the teacher is the facilitator, the planner, she or he is setting up the opportunity for learning and making the choices about what students may be able to access for their play, and acting as a guide and a coach along the way. We looked at various schools who are already implementing some play-based learning or purposeful play. We have in our own district elements of it in our K+ program. So we've got teachers who've been doing it for about 3 years now, and really some have become incredibly masterful, and we were able to capitalize on their learning and expertise and do turnaround sharing. We also looked at all of our kindergarten teachers have the book Purposeful Play, which we've been looking through. We had a lot of fabulous resources out of New Hampshire, where the entire state rolled out the idea of play-based learning. They had a lot of research, a lot of professional learning resources we were able to use with our teachers, and they've just been terrific. However, we really wanted to make sure our whole team was aligned in what we mean here in Lower Merion by purposeful play, because when we went on our site visits, we were seeing, even though people were using some common resources, we were seeing different iterations of it in practice. And we thought we need to really own this and wrestle with it, and let's look at what everyone is saying about it and create our own definition. So you can see on the left there, that is our Lower Merion definition of purposeful play. And you can see some of those key words that I shared. It's teacher facilitated, it's intentional. However, students may have some autonomy, choice, hopefully lots of curiosity, self-direction, and absolutely enjoyment as a part of it. But at the heart of it, this is not instead of standards-based learning, this is in support of standards-based learning. So the teacher is really designing the experience that students are about to have. And it will look different at different times of the year. So you may have teachers being more guiding at the start of the year, if you can picture that. And as the students become more independent, you'll see their roles start to become more autonomous, more directed, and they're going to be able to engage in a little bit more of the self-selection and choice. The teachers, in terms of starting out, and I'm saying, I wasn't planning to go in this direction, but a couple of your questions about professional learning, I'm just going to share some of the teachers who've been doing this for a long time have had really thoughtful guidance for colleagues. Like, you don't just open up play and, you know, expect, you know, the farm stand or the cafe to be running. You're actually teaching each part of it at different stations over time. You know, so you might be learning how to, you know, you're counting your pennies, you know, how do we make a menu? What do we have to think about? You know, so it's a lot of executive function, a lot of planning, a lot of really thoughtful design of each step if you did a task analysis, for example. So there's a lot that goes into play. Like, play is a natural learning state for students, and when we think about what it takes to have a simulation, have something that is representative of a real world application, it's pretty complex. So for little folks, breaking it apart and doing it in stations and small groups, you're going to see a lot more of the teacher facilitation and directed, and then over time students become more independent. So we're very excited, but it is something that we know that in year one, some of our teachers will be growing into, and over time they're going to get more confident with it. But we do have a huge bank of resources shared by our existing team where people can just go in, look at a video that is of someone else's classroom in the district to get ideas and see what it looks like. So classrooms, we have to think a little bit differently because we want to make sure that the space supports the program. So the idea of flexibly using space, flexibly using resources, the idea that more is not necessarily better. One recurring theme that we heard in our site visits was everybody thinks you need to buy a lot of toys, but you don't. You really just need the design, and students can use imagination, modeling, representation, pretend, simulations. All of that is actually some heavy-duty critical thinking. But at the same time, we do want to have, we want everyone to really enjoy the experience and also have some supports so that teachers aren't crafting or feeling that pressure to be, you know, doing a lot more than they may need to if we gave them a few base startup resources. So we've surveyed, we've asked them to survey, they've taken an inventory of their buildings to see what do we already have. We're not looking to outfit each classroom identically because we have different baselines already, but really making sure that when we think, for example, about, if we're having a station that is building, does everybody have building materials, whether it's, Legos, magnetic tiles, just building blocks, Lincoln logs, things like that. You may not need exactly the same thing room by room, but does everybody have enough that they can offer this as an activity for students? And they could always circulate if the kids, if certain things become a little bit less novel over time. But then we also have, inquiry around, kitchen sets, like what are the preferences, what's out there already, what are the preferences, especially as they've been thinking through the science integration. Are there things that might be kind of cool, like a farm stand instead, if we're looking at what do things need to survive? So there's a lot of great conversation, and teachers are involved in that and giving us a lot of input, but we're not looking to do a ton of purchasing, enough that we are supporting classrooms, and then they'll grow year by year. So the idea that we really wanted to echo, because a critical understanding when we talk about play-based learning is that it really is learning focused. So the two types that we'll see in purposeful play are the teacher-constructed, sometimes people will call it teacher-directed, and the other is guided play, and that's where the students start to take a little more autonomy. You can watch them with an activity and they're running the store. Without a lot of direction, the teacher is the observer, perhaps looking at the ways the students are playing, communicating, writing, speaking, looking at speaking and listening standards, and the learning objective that's underlying it. And examples like an ice cream shop, the student who is working on number recognition might be in charge of, you're taking the orders, and there's your sort of, your number line across the top, and you're trying to make sure that you can practice your number recognition while you are living, at the ice cream stand. So some of the teachers have been really amazingly generous and sharing with other staff members, which is going to make it a lot easier for our teachers to transition. But the idea is that the teacher is still the designer of the learning. Free play, no set learning objectives. It's like recess. There's a fourth type of play, which is rough and tumble, but we really won't see that at school, so I left that off our chart. And finally, student achievement and growth. You already heard a little bit about win time. Like these are, which when we think about win time, making sure every student is getting what they need requires us to know what they need. So assessment is a really critical part of learning. It should be organic, ongoing, but sometimes it also needs to be scheduled, where we're taking a dipstick on where is everybody relative to a learning target. And you see the examples that are up here. The DIBBLES is a literacy screener used 3 times a year. Foundations unit assessments monitor student learning in foundations. We have curriculum-based measurements like math unit tests. And then we have writing rubrics, guided reading, and student talk, which each are other ways of taking a snapshot in time of where students are. This is all in place right now, and these will continue to be in place as we go forward. So the good thing about that is we continue to be able to understand where our students are related to our goals. But the benefit here is we have increased capacity to differentiate when we think about the extended, the full day giving us time for that win time, so that now as we're looking at the data, in addition to having teachers who have some push-in support during the classroom, they will also have this win time opportunity to meet the needs of their students. Additionally, it gives us a chance to take a look at the impact of the program over time when we look at how our students are doing on the same benchmarks, when we were in a half day and when we're in a full day program. So it gives us a couple different ways to look at and use the student learning information that we collect.
So we talked about professional development a little already. So we did begin professional development for the current full-day kindergarten teachers. We know that we'll have more teachers coming on board, but we did start some professional development on April 23rd. The whole elementary system got structured literacy, so that was part of what kindergarten did as well. Purposeful play was part of the session. Actually, Dr. Gaudioso ran that. We had videos of current teachers with purposeful play in the classroom. There was turnaround. There's a whole entire shared drive that's been created where teachers are sharing lessons, they're sharing videos, they're sharing tutorials. So that has come about, which is great and a great resource for our staff. In addition to that, our intention is to run a Summer K Institute June 24th, 25th, and 26th. We recognize not every single person will be able to attend that session, so we'll be doing it both synchronous and asynchronously so that we can pick up modules for people that are not there. We're intending to have the foundation session be differentiated for teachers, so where are you on that continuum? What do you need to continue to grow? Purposeful play will be a piece of it. The science steel standards will be a piece of it. Teaching in the content block is important because there's more time now, and so really making sure that we're optimizing instruction during the content block. And then it's not just about curriculum and instruction and what we're delivering from the instructional standpoint. Social emotional learning is also really important. We use responsive classroom, which is part of that whole morning meeting. So what's our next level to work through responsive classroom? That social emotional learning will be a piece of the work that we do with our staff as well. We'll still continue to hire teachers into the summer and recognize that, so we'll offer another session as well towards the end of the summer. But that's our first camp that's going to happen, and that's our intention with who we do have on staff. In addition to that, we really have been talking about special area teachers as well. There's some apprehension about having kindergarten students in front of them if they've never had them before. And so what does that look like? What are students ready for? And what does that curriculum look like as well as part of the conversation? Important information and next steps. So we still have more work to do. I think we're in a really good place and we feel confident that we'll be able to put a good program in place that will continue to grow over the next couple years. But we're looking forward. We started kindergarten orientations last week. They'll go all the way through June depending on the school, the beginning of June. We'll continue our professional learning. Family communication is important, and so that you'll see coming out. Facilities upgrades still need to happen this summer. We've had some happen. We still need some more facilities upgrades that'll happen over the summer. Penguin, for example, needs some things happening in those schools, as well as Marion. And staff assignments still need to be finalized, and any additional hiring still needs to occur. So just from marking the calendars, we're getting ready for the summer. Our summer programs are kicking off, and as part of SPIES, we actually run a pre-K class, and so we'll have some of our students come in prior to kindergarten as part of SPIES. Homeroom assignments will not be posted until late August. I think our half-day parents are used to them coming out in the middle of the school, in the middle of June because of childcare, but they'll actually come out the same time as everybody else, which is late August. August 29th across the district, we'll have classroom sneak peeks, so the students can come in, they can meet their teachers, they can be in the classroom with them. We're actually the first day of school for kindergarten. We're anticipating at this point in time happening on September 5th. And then on the 3rd and the 4th, we'll bring students in to preview what's happening in the classrooms, staggered depending on the student. And then across the district, our right now tentative back to school night for elementary is on September 12th. It's the same day for all of the elementary buildings. Just as, I know that's something that may be a question. Just to give you an idea of the numbers of what we have right now, because that always is a question that we have. So to date, we have 357 completed registrations. We have 64 pending registrations. Our projected enrollment is 476. We're probably on target to hit that. It was the MCPC I'm talking about when I say projected enrollment. Typically between now and then, Megan and I were looking at it today, we get about 50 to 60 kids, should take us right to about where the projected enrollment is. Typically we see the most amount of students come into Penn Valley, we've seen a bunch at Gladwin and Penn Win, and then our other schools don't get many students from today, truly. So our expected class size at this point is 18 to 21. We're still not at a point where we know exactly how many classrooms there'll be in every school because we have some schools that we know will pick up some enrollment, and so we're still watching that. And just preview, family resource, coming tomorrow. I feel like this, coming tomorrow. Our kindergarten website will have a whole new look to it. So the old website's coming down and this is going up, and you'll see sample schedule as part of it. Universal kindergarten is there. There's an FAQ section on this page. The video is there. We define the different curricular areas, including purposeful play on the page, and so it's going to be revamped and revised for our new full day kindergarten program tomorrow. It'll come up. questions.
Okay, I imagine we're gonna have a lot. I think if everybody's good with it, we'll start this way and then we'll come back to me and Sarah. Does that work for the group? Okay, Kimberly, you go first.
Thank you for that presentation. I am curious about how we can ensure that our youngest learners transition to kindergarten successfully. And I want to know how soon we can create the kindergarten readiness checklist for our parents and caregivers so that they know what the expectation is for their child when they come.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. We have a
This fall.
checklist, so I'm gonna make sure that gets onto the website as part of when we launch. I'll make sure that's up there for our families.
Okay, and so I'm also curious about the type of furniture and toys that we're using. Are we getting things that are good for the environment? Are we getting things that are, what's the word I want? Functional, as well as beautiful. I think it's really important, especially at that young age, for them to have that. Will they have dolls also in their play? Sort of multicultural puppets and things like that?
They're all really great questions. So there's not I can't say that from a furniture standpoint, every single classroom will look exactly the same, although they'll function the same, right? And so even if we have desks in some of our kindergarten classrooms that are pushed together to form more of a table type of shape. So you'll see that in the classroom. There'll be rugs, there'll be the kidney-shaped table, but it depends on what currently exists and what we have available. We don't actually need to purchase a lot of furniture at this point in time, which is great. After we've inventoried and looked at what we have throughout the district, it'll be minimal, but we have some things that we do need to purchase still. But so it's not exactly the same in every room, but they function exactly the same way. As Dr. Gotti also talked about with purposeful play, we're not going to have a set, this classroom has every single thing. Instead, it's more around what we're trying to accomplish in purposeful play. So if it's building, it could be Legos, it could be the wooden blocks, it could be a variety of things just to accomplish what we want. We did see some dolls when we were in some of the purposeful playrooms that we visited, and they were multicultural. So I'm sure we'll see some in some classrooms, but it's not necessarily going to be a staple as we start off.
Okay. Well, I am happy about the purposeful play.
Good. Yeah, we're excited about it. Yeah, it was nice.
Jason?
Sure. I have a couple, but you can, after I ask if you want to cut me off, and you can go to someone else and come back. Question for you, starting off with the proposed schedule. So one of the strongest, I think, parts for educating young children is this group and small group, and I think you've reiterated that numerous times. How are we supporting our teachers to do that? I know that in a lot of schools, what they'll do is they'll do team teaching where, you know, a teacher from another classroom will come in, or they'll have an aide in the classroom. What are we doing to support our teachers so that they can actually accomplish, I think you said guided reading, assessments, you know, the small groups. How are we doing that?
So I'm going to turn it over to Dory because Dory also oversees our reading specialist, so I think she's the appropriate person to answer.
So I just want to make sure that I heard your question appropriately. So you want to understand how do we get it all in the time that's available on the schedule?
No, how do we actually functionally do it? And a lot of schools, what they'll do is like they'll break into small groups, right? But who's watching the rest of the class when you're breaking into a small group? They'll do that either with team teaching, so like one teacher, right? Or another option is they'll have an aide in the classroom or a helper in the classroom. My understanding is we're not having someone else in the classroom,
So
right?
to answer your question, we do. So our literacy specialists in kindergarten push in daily. So they'll have support at one point throughout the day for a period of time. That's why those schedule articulations are crucial when we communicate with administrators so that they can see when's the ideal time to lend that layer of support. Teachers also are very skillful in terms of when I'm going to work with different groups, I'm going to sit here so I can still manage other groups within that distance, and I can walk around and facilitate. It comes from really meaningful and thoughtful and intentional planning. So when I'm going to do whole group, then break out into small group, that's intentional. There are also, we have ELD teachers, which I oversee ELD program. They also come in and push into the classroom in kindergarten as well. So when they push in, they're not just lending support to one group, they move around the classroom and lend support to multiple groups. So we do have those options, and people are supporting in the classrooms at different times throughout the day. But there are times where a teacher can absolutely facilitate small group instruction with just themselves in the classroom.
So on like a typical day, how much time would they be getting that support for the teachers?
Well, it depends per building and the level of need. However, a literacy specialist, I would say, pushes in for at least 30 minutes a day. They might get in there twice a day, they might get in once. It depends on the schedule, how many classrooms, what students are in need. You also have math specialists, and it depends on the ELD teachers, what students are in the classroom. So it may vary building by building, but I would say we're going full-time now, so I won't know until we get in there, but we're hoping that they get in there definitely for at least, if we're doing guided reading, for at least 30 minutes for that point in the lesson. But if they need to go back in later in the day in some of the classrooms based on who is in the classroom, you could get maybe up to an additional 30 minutes.
But when you say based on need, when you say based on need, it depends on if it's identified. I'm talking about generally speaking, all of the children.
Generally speaking, all children literacy specialists will push in for probably about 30 minutes a day.
And then you'll have a math specialist as well that's going to be able to pop in.
Yes, that I can't speak to the degree, how often for every classroom, so I don't want to commit to that because we don't have as many math specialists, so that'll vary as well.
I'm sorry, and during WIN time, that actually also is time where we have people pushing into the classrooms during that period as well. We did talk about prioritizing kindergarten and making sure that we push as much support down as we possibly can.
We do that currently, so we'll just add on to that. That's a practice we have now. The other people, and I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, I was remiss in mentioning, we have Title I schools, so we have Title I assistants in all of our Title I schools, and we have IST and additional interventionists. So there's different times that, depending on what's going on in the classroom, you may have those supports as well.
Got it. Residency school field trips for kindergarten, is that something that's part of the?
Yes, we have a partnership with Riverbend. So the kindergarten they have a problem-based learning unit as well.
So that will continue on as what they do. Mm-hmm. Excellent. The Summer K Institute that you guys have, that you have identified, I think in June. In June. I was just curious, based on the projected numbers, it seems like there might be 2 or 3 more classes by the end of, projected as to what it is now. How do we incorporate, like there are some teachers that have already been notified that they're going to be teaching. How do we make sure that all of the teachers, even if we have to add a class last minute, are going to be trained and prepared to provide in the fall?
Sure. So we intend on doing our modules both in person and then asynchronously, so that we have the modules available for people that are not able to attend. And then in addition to that, we'll run another session later on during the summer. So this is the beginning, but we'll pick up another session later to pick up anybody else that needs some assistance. We could honestly hire somebody right before, and we recognize that, and so that'd be individual, work with them as well.
I know that we can't cut off, obviously if someone moves into the district, right? Mm-hmm. When will we have a better understanding of, like, I don't want to say final numbers, but when do you expect to provide the principals with numbers of students, and then how many classrooms there'll be so that they can prepare accordingly?
Megan does a great job with updating the principals on a regular basis with their numbers. So current numbers they have on a regular basis, and right now we know how many sections we're anticipating, but it's going to depend on what really comes in between now and September. So, and Megan can answer this, but we were chatting today and looking back the last couple of years, how many students are coming in, just to try to get a feel for what it might actually still look like between now and September, and even by school, because every school's a little different. Like I said, we know some schools get a lot more students than other schools. So we were looking at that too. But Megan, if you want to elaborate on that, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I would just add that in addition to just the regular updates, we are committed to a pretty critical meeting tomorrow with our principals to make some mostly final decisions, because they're as anxious to prepare probably even more than you are for the year. So the pressure is real on both sides for us, that we want to make sure that they're equipped and have the understanding of what we're seeing, and that we make some decisions together, knowing what our growth looks like historically over the summertime, and hopefully finalize some of those things for them as well, so everyone has the right amount of time to get ready.
Just stop me. Building specialists, there's been some talk, some people have said that we're gonna have to share them among the schools. Is that gonna happen, or will each school have their dedicated specialists and they'll be associated there?
They will be shared. They're shared now. Our specialists are shared, not in every school. Some people have dedicated, but Penwyn is large, and so Belmont Hills share specialists because Belmont Hills is small, and so we do some sharing, and that will continue.
So the schools that currently don't share would remain that way, or is it gonna be, like, have we, sorry, based on the restructuring to satisfy some of the teacher needs, are we repurposing some of those specialists, or the specialists will stay where they're designated as of right now?
It's based on section counts, and so where our final section counts come in is how we determine what's shared. We're not anticipating much change to what we currently have from a structure standpoint, though, overall.
The goal with those kind of folks is to have like a certain X number of students that they're working with, right? And then whether they share across schools or not is dependent on how many schools are in a building.
It's
correct?
the section count. It's not student necessarily,
Yeah.
but how many sections. So if we have, like, let's say 2 kindergartens in one school and 5 in another school, right? It just really depends on the section count. Anything over 5, we try to reshuffle so that we have common prep time for our teachers, but it really just depends on the section count, not necessarily the students. Obviously, the students are what makes the section count, but it's really the number of sections that we're running in a building.
I was thinking more of like art, science, like those as well, like for the school. So they're not gonna be, they should remain the same. So like if an art teacher is devoted to the school, right, they're not gonna now be split between 2 different schools. They should be staying in the same.
We're not moving people because of this, if that's what I think you're asking me, if I'm hearing you correctly. But art is it's definitely a shared special. The person that's sharing right now most likely will be continuing to be the person that's sharing. We're not reshuffling them because of this.
So it shouldn't change.
Right.
Perfect. Do we have an idea as to when the schedule or the curriculum will be finalized so that the actual schedule, I know that there's like a sample one, but like an actual schedule could be provided to parents, and like a curriculum will be able to be read by parents so that they have an understanding?
Our curriculum's fairly intact at this point. The science curriculum is what's changing. And on our website, there will be a description of what each of those curriculum entails. So we can, if somebody wanted to come in and look at something, we can provide that for them today or tomorrow if we wanted to. Science is still changing and it's still growing, so that's going to take us some time into the summer to get that totally finalized. But we're pretty much there from a curricular standpoint. Schedules are dependent on the school, and every school schedule is going to be different. It's not going to, we won't have one identical school to the other school. What you'll see is, you know how we had the curriculum articulation minutes? We're still going to have 90 minutes of ELA in every one of our schools. When it's happening, won't necessarily be exactly the same in every single school. So, you know, we talked about sharing specialists, right? If Belmont Hills needs to share a specialist with Penwyn, they may not have the same availability as like Marion does. And so their schedules shift because of that. Schedules are usually not totally intact until later in the summer.
Okay. But so by the end of the summer, there should be a better idea of that?
We will definitely know by the end of the
And
summer.
then the curriculum, are we going to be putting it up on the website as well?
Yes.
Except for the science?
Well, science is up there, but it's still being revised. We don't actually put all of our curriculum documents on there. We put an overview of the curriculum, and then if a parent wanted to come in and review our curriculum documents, we're happy to let them do that, but it's not a public-facing document.
But this is different than what's been up as of last year, where it was from like 2012 and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
How does ELA for a full-day kindergarten compare to the half-day? Is it about the same time? Is it more time?
Time allocation is the same, but Dory, why don't you talk about that?
Time allocation is the same. That win time will be crucial because that's when now we can absolutely have a learning day continue and students immediately get what they need for that intentional targeted instruction. So we'll be able to go deeper in those areas, and to extend the listening speaking goes along with the social emotional while we're building vocabulary acquisition, which will be crucial for the science steel standards, so that environmental literacy. So we'll have more opportunities for students to engage in those discussions and that type of learning.
And I know you visited Radnor as one of the schools. How does our curriculum schedule compare to the amount of time that they've devoted and the curriculum that they put together?
What we liked about Radnor, one of our takeaways from Radnor was they have a really nice wind block, which we're not able to offer at this point in time, and so that was absolutely a takeaway. They've had foundations longer than us, but we've had Haggerty, and they just put that in. So, I mean, from the perspective of curriculum, and anybody else can join in, we felt very comfortable with our curriculum, but we liked the wind time there a lot, and that was one of our takeaways.
Do you want me to keep on going?
Bang it out, let's go, you got your list.
Sorry, screen time, I didn't know for kindergartners, I know that we try to stay away from screen time, but I saw that there was some screen time on there. Will there be dedicated screen time for our kindergartners? How will that be maintained? Will they have a laptop or iPad?
Yeah, they have iPads. We're one-to-one iPads in kindergarten, and so they'll have iPads. We use it during center time primarily, I would say, a lot. And so you'll see kids, when you saw it, it was probably during the center. I don't even know if it was one of our students, to be honest with you, but typically when I'm in the classrooms, I see it more during center time than anything else. Sometimes during writing if they're practicing. But that's primarily where I see it. Anybody else is free to jump in with that? Something different?
Jay, you want to go?
You know, I don't know if you remember the little whiteboards that the kids would write on and hold up and then be covered in ink and so forth. I see a lot of the interactive, okay, show me you know it type of things with the iPad, which it can be saved, which is kind of cool.
And also the program that we started using is the portfolio that I'm blanking on the name. Seesaw, thank you. My brain just kept talking about Dreambox, and I know they also do that. But yes, Seesaw is also one of the things the kids do on iPads and at that level.
I thank you for bringing up the question, because it's been a constant conversation where we're keeping each other, teachers across the curriculum, mindful of, if we're going to use that resource, how often are you using it in math or in science? Because we need to add up those minutes and be mindful of that. So when we talked about resources and supplemental resources, we were extremely thoughtful, not just in kindergarten, but in all of our grade levels, as to say, okay, well then, we're gonna give some guidelines in terms of how often this resource should be used and to what degree to support the learning. So I know for literacy foundations, we don't use the iPad at all. I don't even wanna entertain it. We want to put more books in their hands and have those conversations, and it would be just at a center. We've reduced literacy footprints digital license. We've reduced some of the learning A to Z, just in an effort to be really intentional when we're going to have screen time, because it's not just in one subject area. So thank you for the question, because that was an area of focus.
Are we really intentional about teaching the science of reading?
Yes.
What program are we using for that?
So do you want to know our literacy programs? So we have foundations for K
I
through 2.
remember foundations.
Foundations?
Foundations.
It came in,
foundations.
Foundations.
Different, oh, okay.
Yeah, so foundations, we brought that in, so we're only in our second year, so
Right.
that's probably why it sounds a little.
It was Journeys before, wasn't
Right,
it?
right. So now we have foundations K through 2, and we supplement with Haggerty because of the phonemic awareness. And we were doing that. That was one area, as Dr. McGloin mentioned, in Radnor, there were some things that were like, yay, we went wind time, but hey, we're ahead over here because we brought in this program. And we have the ability, when you talked about extended time, there's a reteach and a double dose. So we now have time to keep that learning moving forward. We also have, in guided reading, multiple level readers, where that's more for the comprehension, yes, the fluency, but also more so for those conversations and analysis and the writing that's in response and the drawing. We have text sets, the NGOs, which build background knowledge, and Foundations has decodable readers, so the scope and sequence matches. And then there's application when they get into, we have Scholastic, the magazines for authentic reading experiences, and put those books in their hands. And then we also have our classroom libraries in DIB. We use the scorecard to ensure that we're enhancing that learning as well. So we lean in on, I often say, the comprehension through the conversations and the questions that we ask for students for the analysis pieces. And we just added interactive read-alouds. So that is another piece of our literacy
Can you
instruction.
articulate a little bit about that, give an example of what that would look like?
Sure, which part?
The last part.
So the text when they're doing the mentor text or the interactive read aloud?
The interactive read aloud, I would
Sure,
like to,
so
what
that
does that
is
mean?
part of, so that means that the teacher does a read aloud, but it's interactive, where I'm not just gonna read the story to you, that I'm actually gonna pause and ask some really intentional questions.
Okay.
So that you'll think, pair, share, and then share out. And then I can then guide, do I need to go back, or can I go a little deeper? I'm gonna gauge formatively. And through that, there then are lessons that follow up and activities and supplementals, and that would be a good small group breakout where they then could have some conversations and follow-up activities.
Okay, that sounds great. One last thing, I promise, I think. So that parents and caregivers know it is not the district's expectation that their 5-year-old or 6-year-old kindergartner knows how to read when they get here.
Again, appreciate that. We will put that down. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay, we're going to move on to Curry.
Okay, got it. Wasn't ready. Oh, no, I'm good. I was gonna say, you were just checking off our list, so we don't really mind that much. Okay, so ELA is staying from 90 minutes to 90 minutes with the full day, correct? How's math time changing?
It's increasing by 15 minutes,
So from what to what?
45 minutes to an hour.
45 minutes to 1 hour. Okay. We talked about making purchases after the July 1st deadline. Questioning the time frame to get all the toys, all the equipment, all the materials together to be able to have a full curriculum that we roll into with purposeful play. What is the lead time on those purchases? Even if you make it on July 1st, you get a holiday weekend, you know, it's, some of those elementary school materials take forever. I know you know this, but it's concerning.
So we can actually put the purchase order out, but we can't receive materials until July 1. Does that make sense? So we can pre-purchase and then things come in July 1. But we've been fortunate. I mean, we've done this with K+ and not had any issues with lag time. Furniture is more of, I would say, an issue than curricular materials are at this point in time, but we'll pre-purchase. We won't wait until July 1 to make the purchase. It's just that it will hit on July 1 and we can't receive anything until July 1 to pay for it.
Got it. Next question, when we talked, I believe it was you, Ms. Gaudioso, Dr. Gaudioso, full day K, the goal, what are some of the expectations of goals, and did you talk to Radnor or other school districts about this? Of like, what do we want to see? Our kids with the, you know, measuring the dibbles coming in and the dibbles coming out, what is the expectation from other districts when they implement it from half to full day K, the goal outcomes for the year, so we know what targets we should be going towards?
It was interesting. One of them, they felt like they had more social emotional gains and really hadn't done sort of didn't have a metric, but we're seeing some of the gains there. The others, I think we actually got to see some things, like when we were in one district, the students were further, you know, they had progressed further in the Foundations program, for example, than where our students were. And some of that is that extended time to, you know, because if you don't have 80% of your students there, the teacher has to go back and reteach and make sure we're all moving along, right? So that idea that when you can grab small groups and win time, you're essentially, you know, moving through a little bit faster. And Dr. Martin-Patone could talk in much more detail because she's been living it, but that idea that some things we could expect to see an impact perhaps in our pacing, right? We could see an impact in our student mastery perhaps sooner. And again, different cohorts, you know, so there's a lot that you would have to wait a few years to see. Is it a trend or is it just a different cohort, right? But, you know, what we would expect to see that, or hope to see, is that we're not going to, for example, have as many students that we are perhaps referring for extra assistance beyond core, or to achievement team, because we're getting the intervention just in time. So again, it's hard to measure a negative because we'd like to see a reduction. And again, those cohort differences year to year, you know, they raise questions until we can really kind of see a pattern. But I think there are going to be a lot of intangibles like the student social emotional. And as I was listening to the questions about, you know, you know, are we going to need like all hands on deck at the start of the year? Like our kindergarten teachers are pros at, you know, first 6 weeks of school, you are teaching school. And your first play unit might be playing school, you know, so that you're helping to teach some of the rules. So that idea, even that concern about will things be here by day one, the advice that our veteran teachers who've been doing the play has been is, you're not going to be opening up play right away. You know, you're going to be teaching how we get along with our friends. You're going to be teaching, you know, turn taking. You're going to be so some of those things that really are just developmentally appropriate. Those are places where one of the districts that we saw used an observation tool, like a rubric, to be looking at, and a lot of this was the social emotional speaking and listening standards right out of early childhood standards or the state standards. So some of those, we've already had conversation about using some rubrics like that to look at our students. We don't have pre and post, but I think we'll be able to see the success as we're looking at individual student growth. So things like that we've had conversation about. The ones that we know we'll be able to use are the, you know, that because we've got our baseline with our existing, but some of it will be more telling than others. And I think, you know, we have yet to develop some of the rubrics, and I think we'll have more conversation about that, but that's kind of where we are right now.
Got it. So we're projected, and I don't know who this goes to, 476 for full day K next year. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. What was it? How many kids did we have in half day K?
This current school year?
Yep.
Is anybody able to pull that
Anybody
up?
can get their board docs, it's in an attempt.
I can't.
I need somebody to pull that information.
Denise is
I
going to
don't
look
have
it
at my
up for
fingertips.
us.
I can't.
I had the same question, was going to look it up, but my computer died.
344.
Can I jump in there and ask a question because you brought this up about the Dibbles test? Can we explain for transparency, because most parents will not have any idea what the Dibbles test is and why we use it, you know, so really explaining what the acronym means, the dynamic indicators, whatever. Can we do that?
Go ahead, Dory.
Absolutely. I kind of knew you would ask that question, so and I can share this with you. But what it comprises in kindergarten is you have the letter naming fluency, because it is true there's a lot of acronyms. Phoneme segmentation fluency, nonsense word fluency, word reading fluency, and we do not begin the oral reading fluency till near the end of kindergarten. So it's a quick screener. And it is timed, so then we'll stop and also often look to see what can they do untimed in those areas, and then we look closely at what that may be. To Jen's point, Dr. Gaudioso's point, we can do some comparisons with the time because we have the gift of time. So this allows you to progress monitor along the way as well, and we have that opportunity. But we can make this accessible as well as making a note of that, because we often do say dibbles or amplify and use acronyms, and it'll tell you exactly what it's measuring. That'll be helpful.
I think especially something like nonsense words, because parents who are not in education would have no idea that we're going to show their child nonsense words and then grade them on whether or not they were actually able to, you know, pronounce the sounds of those letters in this, you know, weird way.
It's a great point, and I brought the family sheet as well, so we can absolutely hyperlink those. It is dynamic indicators of basic early literacy skills. If you want to know, it sure is.
We need to put a glossary up on the
I was just
website.
gonna say, a glossary, we always want a glossary, and every time in these meetings, I think it's hysterical to have a glossary for kindergarten. Okay, just a few more questions. So did I hear right, we're projecting 476, and it's last year it was 315?
Oh, no, right now we're at about 359.
359.
Well, the 10th day enrollment numbers are 344.
I'm using today's.
Okay.
I'm using the 10th
So
day
it looks like
enrollment.
we're at 359
Around
today.
350. Okay, so that it's a significant amount of people. A couple questions from that Jason kind of hit on earlier that I just want to kind of go loop around on one time. So in an average time in class, a civics class, which has a huge amount of reading in it, we're going to have one adult in the classroom per 21 kids. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that is correct.
Is that the typical standard? That is not, I'm just saying that's not my experience in teaching kindergarten. So it was a much higher ratio, adults to kids. Is that standard across the board? Is that what we're seeing in other districts?
Yeah, it's not, it actually is probably lower than some other districts. My experience has been more like 22 or a little bit higher. Dr. Gaudio, so what was yours, similar to that? Yeah, and when we did our site visits, some of the classrooms had up to 25 students in them. So we asked that question as well as part of the site visit, how many students do you have in your classroom, just to get a gauge, are we like on track or not on track? And it was, we were lower or on par, I would say.
Got it, okay,
And that took into, sorry.
it's okay.
And that took into account also if there was like a reading, like consistency on like, we had a reading specialist, they had a reading specialist that came in and like other aspects as well?
Every district's different, that's what I would say. So like, it's like comparing apples and oranges. Some had more reading specialists, some had less than us. Some had no math specialists, we had a math specialist. Some had instructional assistant, we don't have instructional assistants. So it was just depending on the district, what the makeup of their support staff was. And there was no consistency, I would say, but we were not askew from other districts.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next question. I want to be just clear and transparent around the curriculum. Talk about another word that needs a glossary definition on it. When we talk about the curriculum online, it's pretty light. We just barely put up the framework when we put a kindergarten or any level curriculum. It's not the curriculum, it's just the framework, basically the outline for what the kids are being taught, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So parents can come in and walk through the large, curriculum's everything. It's the books, it's the materials, it's the worksheets, it's the whole shebang. So would it, because this is new and it's a new initiative and people really want to see what is going through, and to Kimberly's point, also prep their kid beforehand, are there ways to put curriculum examples online? So when our parents say, what is my kid learning next year? What are they doing in this? What are some of the reading excerpts? What are some of the questions, some of the worksheets? Something simple to just be able to get exposed to kind of what are the material you're doing in a kindergarten classroom.
Absolutely. We can definitely put a little more depth to it. What we don't do is share our curriculum online, like our own documents online, but we can put more depth into it for sure. We can take a look at it. It'll take us a little bit of time to build that, but we absolutely can do that.
Just to piggyback onto that, it might be really nice if our kindergarten educators and our elementary librarians can partner with the local Lower Merion Library librarians, and put together like a reading list of like books that would be good to read with your kid, suggested kind of things that parents who are interested in doing that sort of prep stuff can be reading to and with their kids, especially since the library is a great place for kids and families to be all the time, but especially in the summer when they're not at school and when it's hot and they want to be somewhere air conditioned.
We do have a summer reading list that is actually created by our librarians at the elementary level and at the middle level, but we can add to that and enhance it.
Yeah, that would be really great to have, to give as a resource to our local public librarians to have that sort of partnership.
I was just going to say that I think some of the school districts, what they'll do is they'll just give an overview of the curriculum, just about who they use, and then they'll do a hyperlink to that, you know, whether it's foundations, and then the hyperlink to that so that they have examples and then they have information, so.
You just want to be clear that you're not getting the curriculum. They're pretty dense documents,
Right.
and
Yeah,
IP
they are.
is covered.
Yep,
'Cause,
yep.
Okay, last question I think I have for this. You said earlier, but I just wanted to clarify that the schedules for the parents to know when what their student schedule is coming out in August?
Homeroom assignments come out in
Homeroom
August.
assignment. When will they get, usually, is it the same time that the rest of the kids get their, got it. So again, parents, because that was a question just for clarification, that it kind of came up twice and was answered differently. So you'll get your schedule the week before school?
So I want to clarify, schedule, when you think of schedule at the high school level, kids get a schedule, right? They get all of their classes and they get what periods they're assigned. Elementary students do not get that. They get their homeroom teacher is what they get. And then when they get to school, they find out, when do I have ELA, when do I have math, when do I have specials? It doesn't come out, like when you think of a schedule at the high school level, you view like, you know, my son, who's a junior, I get his whole entire schedule, what period does he have every single class, who his teacher is, and what classes he has. Elementary is different. What we send home is homeroom assignments, and then when students get to school is when they find out like when they have their different classes. So it's a little different. When I just wanted to be clear about that, because schedule versus like homeroom assignments are different at elementary level. We don't send home This is like what the whole day is. Now, a teacher might send something like that home before school, just depending on how they're communicating, or they'll see it at back to school night. So there's times that it's put out, but it's not sent home in August when we send the homeroom assignments out.
Got it,
Does that
okay. I
make
think
sense?
my elementary school kids, teachers have always sent something home, which was really helpful for kids who have anxiety issues
Yeah.
and need to kind of prep before they walk into that very full day of the first day of school, that they just have a general outline of what they're doing is very helpful, and visual, so they can see it and kind of walk through it as well. Okay.
And
I
we've
think
spent
that's-
time the last couple of years with teachers to say, like, you should not just hit academics the first day of school. Really, belonging is so important, and creating that culture in the classroom is really important, and teaching routines and rules in elementary school is vital. So we don't just go through the whole schedule, right? It's like they'll get their special and so forth right in the beginning, but we really have spent time to let teachers know it's okay to build that classroom environment, because it pays off tenfold in the end. So it's not like hit you in the face in elementary school like it is at the high school level, or even middle school.
Abby, go ahead.
Thank you. This is long, I know. I have a couple of questions. The first question I want to ask is sort of like a recommendation and a question. So we talk a lot about how, more toys doesn't make a more enriching environment, and I completely agree with that. I'm wondering, in the intention of building belonging, I don't know if this is doable, but sharing, toys, or whatever the right words are, resources throughout the school system, and like a post office sort of way, where people feel responsible for their items and they know that someone else is going to be using them, and so they treat them well, and they feel that there's real tangible responsibility that they have, as opposed to kind of, so many of these buzzwords are completely in the air. But this could be a way of really showing, my stuff is not just my stuff, it's our stuff. And I'm using somebody else's stuff, and they cared about it, and they cared about it so much that I can use it. And sort of helping to kind of really, drill down some of these concepts. Because purposeful play and play-based learning, it's life. So, because childhood is not like a race, right? We're not trying to get out of it. We're not trying to get them over these humps. No, we want to cultivate what they're learning. And I think that this is an opportunity to really share across the district. And it makes you feel like you're part of something if you're using somebody else's thing and they're using yours. It feels like we're sharing. So I wanted to kind of throw that out there as a suggestion. I don't know if that's, I don't know what the rules are around all that stuff, but because when I was in school, I remember having a post office, and it was really cool, and kindergarten got to be a part of it, as well as, all the other grades, but it felt really special, and I think that's something that we can I would love to explore better, I should say. Another question that I have, or a question that I have, is for the schedule, the actual schedule. So I have been on both sides of half-day kindergarten. I had a PM and an AM. PM kindergarten is really, really hard. Kids in that age group, as everybody knows, they are not really there. So I'm curious what the end of the day looks like. If there's a way to encourage that it's not super academic, I would love to suggest that. And if you can.
That came out of site visits, actually. Exactly what you're saying was what we saw in the site visits, and we're anticipating the heavier academics being in the morning than in the afternoon, because you're right, like they just kind of need to decompress. They need a little time, even during, physical activity time, just coming back in and getting reset is important. So some of the teachers even shut their lights off for 5 minutes just to reset the students as they came back in, because they're still young, right? And so we saw that in all of our site visits, and it's a conversation that we've had with the principals.
Okay, great,
Yep.
because I think you're going to set yourself up to fail 100%,
Yeah.
no question. Yeah. Say it again?
We have foundations purposely.
In the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really key. Another question I have is about the kindergarten playgrounds. So I know that not all schools have the same kind of equipment, and I'm curious where that all stands in terms of facilities.
Penwin's the only elementary school that does not have any type of kindergarten playground. That we know we need to put one in. It's not going to happen this summer. Hopefully next summer that'll be on the agenda to happen. We could use to enhance the playground at Penn Valley and Marion. Penn Valley's is in an area that has a fence around it. We're not going to be able to fit all the students in there at once, so they'll have to stagger their times. And Belmont Hills could use some upgrades as well, and we recognize that. It's just not going to happen this summer. We're anticipating it happening the following summer.
And when I say playgrounds, thank you for that answer. And when I say playgrounds, I also mean the grounds. So, because I'm a Kinwood parent, so the grounds at Kinwood are a mud pit most of the time, which prevents kids from being able to play outside. And it, really hinders what they're able to do. And they end up being on screens a lot because they have indoor recess. I mean, I have to say this. I recognize screens are part of life. I get it. But I would love to have more crayons and markers in kids' hands, like throughout K through 12. But especially in K, I think we really need to keep that in the forefront. And then my last question about all of this.
And just we're also in the Facilities and Purchasing Committee. We've been talking about playgrounds, and it's been added to the capital improvement project plan, so that hopefully in the near future, we'll start upgrading and updating some of those needed school playgrounds for the time being.
Thank you. Yeah, but I just would love for this to be completely in concert with full-day kindergarten happening, or just, tomorrow, actually. So my other question is if you can clarify, based on the calendar that's out, how orientation is working in the fall, because there is a Zoom component. And
So I know that's on the calendar. We're not anticipating the Zoom. We're anticipating students coming in to the schools and going through their day, spending some time in the cafeteria, going through the lines, getting comfortable, having the parents get comfortable with the program as well. So that will be an adjustment and a change.
So it will not be Zoom. It'll be, and then will there be 2 days, 2 half days?
That's right. We're anticipating 2 days at this point in time. Half of the students on one day and half on the other day.
So I think a lot of parents have planned on, if you look on the calendar, it says a virtual day on the 3rd, and now on your calendar, it's the 3rd and 4th. I mean, we've talked about how wonderful the teachers are, and I mean, we're very fortunate that we have unbelievable teachers in the district. You've also talked about all the resources that you're going to start pushing towards full-day kindergarten at the beginning. I just ask you to consider starting the kindergarten program like a lot of other districts do, on the exact same day that everything else starts. I don't think there's really a need. We have orientation that's already started in a lot of the schools already. We have we already have a sneak peek that you put on the calendar in August. I don't think that there's a need, potentially, unless there's some other reason why, if we have the resources already devoted to it, why we need to have 2 staggered days, why we can't just start full-day kindergarten on that first day of school.
We can have the conversation again. I would say, at a minimum, the students have never been in school before, and even though we're doing sneak peeks and they're seeing the classrooms, actually going into the cafeteria and figuring out how to use the cafeteria, those types of things are very different from kindergarten, even to 1st grade. But we can talk about it tomorrow. We have a meeting.
Oh, I just want to make this recommendation. You were talking about playgrounds, and the Philadelphia school, they have these fabulous a new playground installation in the front of their school. So I would make a recommendation to just take a look at it.
Where is it?
The Philadelphia school, it's a private school. It's at 24th and Lombard.
Abby, you all set?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Todd, do you have any questions?
Well, I mean, I'm not really on the
No, but you.
Well, I'm not really on the committee, but since I'm here,
Go for it.
I just have a couple things. So it's great to see how you guys are incorporating opportunities for creative play, expression, thought. I mean, one of the hardest things teachers have to do is teach kids how to think creatively. It sounds simple, but it's actually a really hard thing to do. So the first thing is create an opportunity for kids to think creatively. So it's really nice to see that. The other thing, though, is to show examples of successful creative thought. So my question is, where in the plan and the curriculum is the opportunity for the teachers to be creative in the classroom? Is it this purposeful play? And that's an obvious one, but are there other opportunities? Like, are we thinking about the teachers? Because there's a tremendous opportunity here to do some really clever things with this.
So I'll say something briefly, and then I think our curriculum team may also have some things to add. Coming out of COVID, we engaged in a reimagination. So while we were reconfiguring schools, we were doing that look at the possible future our kids may face, how learning needs to be different, how can we integrate their experiences, how can we help them be those curious, open-minded thinkers, and that led to interdisciplinary learning prototyping in our upper grades, and we have the problem-based learning units in our K to 4 or K to 5 grades. And what's evolved there is a lot of teacher ownership. They did some work with a consultant for a little while on just that open inquiry mindset and helping to generate that space with kids. So the idea is that while the students are learning, they're looking at some real world problem, they're asking questions, they're generating. And I think a lot of the work that we did in those years, it was actually some of the most positive experiences we had going through COVID. And when you talk about where's the opportunity for teachers to think creatively, be creative, it was very exciting to be a part of that. And I've seen those units have evolved and what the kids are producing and what the teachers are excited about, but they're also doing a lot of thinking of how can we. So it really, we're getting there. I think there's more opportunity for sure, and I think embedding the science into the play was one of our efforts in really trying to think that through in terms of how do we keep curiosity and wonder a part of this outside of just the PBL or problem-based learning units. So I don't know, KD has had some amazing ideas, and Dory has been a great thinking partner with how are we going to like make this cross-curricular. So the teachers are pretty creative. I don't know if anybody wants to jump in and add, but we would always look for ways to support them with being even more creative, for sure.
I would say they are the owners of the curriculum at this point. We provide them the time and space conceptually just recently. When you look at the even outward-facing documents that you're talking about with the unit overviews, the scope and sequence, they are mindful of the state standards, but they are also know your children pretty well, and they are the ones who have the conversations and ask the questions and create the lessons. With KD coming on board, we also are being collaborative and getting together with those, we call them the curriculum cadre, and they all have a voice that every building's represented, to say what now could this look like? How can we integrate more experiences through questioning and providing that space, like you said, even giving an idea to generate other ideas. So I'm really excited about the work that they're going to embark on May 16th. We're going to get into the science portion of that work. So they do have a good bit of the ownership with the curriculum.
Right, because the best way to keep a kid excited to learn something is to have the teachers excited to teach it. So we just want to make sure that that flexibility is built into as you guys are envisioning this. Yep. That was my sort of big 10,000-foot question. I mean, a couple nuts and bolts things. This win, it said 10 minutes. So what is
30
it?
minutes. It's 30 minutes.
That's 30 minutes per class, per kid, per like how much does a kid, like an individual kid get per week or per day? Like how is this broken down?
Yeah, so WIN is 30 minutes a day, and the whole class gets it at the same
For
time.
20 kids?
Yeah, but they're not all doing the same thing. It's differentiated for the students that are in the classroom. So there may be 20 kids, but it's not full group. Does that make sense? Like, so you may be having a reading specialist pushing in, and she may take a small group. It could be speech and language therapist that's working with somebody in the classroom individually. So it ranges from individual to smaller groups, but it's 30 minutes every day.
Okay. And I guess the only other comment I had, I think Corey was asking, like, how are we going to know or assess the impact of going, I think this was your question, going from a half day to a full day? We got an opportunity to teach our kids more and learn, like, how are we going to know if we're being effective and if we're hitting some of those marks? And I guess just, I don't know the answer to that question either, but I wouldn't be surprised if the manifestation of that change actually becomes more evident in first and second grade later on, which we do have the pre and post for than the kindergarten so much. So anyway, yeah, I just just more just a comment than a question. But anyway, I'm excited about it. I think you guys are doing a good job. Thank you.
Okay, in an effort to move us along, Sarah, did you have anything that hadn't been hit yet?
I have short ones,
Okay.
only a couple.
Oh, chair. Chairs wait till the end.
So I know we've talked a lot about purposeful play and different types of opportunities for our students. Are there any guaranteed common items? I know you said not every classroom will look the same, but are there any guaranteed items that we will have for every classroom?
For purposeful play?
Yeah.
We have not necessarily landed on that. That's not to say, like, if we decided we wanted a farm stand because it's part of the science curriculum, that we wouldn't provide that for every single classroom. A lot of our classrooms have kitchens at this point. We're looking at IKEA. They're not that expensive at IKEA, honestly. So you may see something like that, but we're more thinking more thematic than you need to have this in your classroom.
Like the function.
Yeah, the function versus the item. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just logistic question, snack time. Depending on when lunch is, will there be, especially with the day going a little bit longer for all of elementary and specifically kindergarten, is there a built-in, it's not like listed on the schedule per se, will it be like a eat while you work, or will there be a dedicated kind of like 10 minutes for snack time each day?
Well, it depends on when things land in the schedule, so it'll be different in the buildings, just depending on where it lands lunch. But there's typically, we don't build it into any schedules, but our students have snacks during the day, yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like first grade might need that, like dedicated, you know?
Yeah, right.
Multitasking
And
is not
honestly, if
there.
you're like a first lunch, often you need something at the end of the day. If you're at end of the day lunch, you often are hungry, right? Like, we try to do something in the morning. And so we don't build it into any schedule, but it exists.
Okay. And then just something for future thinking regarding kindergarten. Currently and in the past with half day, I know we work a lot of times based on parent schedules and need for AM versus PM. Has there been any thought moving forward, now that we're going into full day, to do some type of universal screener for all of our students coming in so that we can have more balanced classes to start the year?
So we talked about that. We've had many conversations on universal screeners coming in this year. We're doing kid watching as part of our orientation. So, you know, we'll watch the kids doing some kind of academic stations and just moving around and playing so that we can try to just, by watching, balance out the classrooms. We decided not to have a specific universal screener going into this school year. We may change our mind going in next year. We've had multiple conversations on it already this year.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, we don't do it at orientation, but they do have universal screeners when the school year begins. That's your dibbles.
Okay, are you all set? Okay, I'm gonna 86 a lot of my questions. I'm thinking, so just to clarify, purposeful play is happening in the classroom. That's not gonna be happening out on the play. Okay, so I was gonna ask about training for playground aids, not important. So, will this extended schedule allow for more inclusion of students with IEPs because they're having less time, that they're being pulled out of the classroom, that they'll have more time to be participating in their classroom communities?
It's really based on what the IEP goals and objectives are and how often they're supposed to be included in the classroom from an academic standpoint. We did see some great examples of students included during purposeful play that wouldn't necessarily be included with the teacher pushing into the classroom. It was beautiful as far as I was concerned. So we'll see that definitely happening during the time. So some of it will happen because of that, but a lot of it is driven by the IEP.
Yeah, just will that additional time allow for more flexibility to sort of, I know this is already the goal, but to structure IEP supports so that there is greater push in support rather than pull out support? Will it just, the extra time allow for that flexibility, or is it just not really going to affect the way I'm thinking about it?
It may not affect the way that you're thinking about it, with the exception of, like I said, purposeful play. There's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't be including students in there. So you'll see some additional because of that. Specials, you'll see some additional because of that.
Okay. And I know we said 18 to 21 for class size. Do we have, what's our class size now with half day?
20 is our
20?
max.
Okay,
So we're
great.
going
So
up by
that's
one, yeah.
perfect. And that'll be great for our, I have apologize, my sister always knows the moment to call me. That'll be great for our teachers that are currently having 2 classes and then are having 40 students, so they'll be able to focus in a lot more closely on each kiddo they have in their class. I think my last question, is this going to affect in any way our assessments or report card reporting for that sort of thing?
I mean, organically it may. It depends on if we see, like, if we get further in a subject area, what we have in science, we may end up changing because of the STEEL standards. But right now, it won't have any impact on the report card or the reporting system.
Okay, great. That was the end of my questions. I think we made it through. Okay.
Sorry, I just.
I thought we would have gotten all ears. Okay, hop on, Jason.
I was just curious, how frequently are we meeting with elementary school principals and teachers just to make sure that they're getting all of the needs that they have addressed?
So it depends. The principals, we have a few who are representatives on the advisory team. So as we were meeting all year, they were going back and having more frequent conversations with their team, as representatives. However, we meet monthly with the principals, and every meeting we've had a placeholder on the agenda on full day K. Additionally, the website updates, this presentation, the FAQ that was developed, all of that goes to the principals to review, give input, make suggestions. In fact, we wanted to make sure we got the FAQ done for them before their orientation sessions so that if anybody was creating additional resources, they could be aligned with a common message across the district. We provided all of them with some slides on the program so that they had the same talking points at their orientations, although only one has happened so far. So to the degree possible, we've been looping them in all the way through. And, even today, just, resharing, here's the website that's going to launch tomorrow. Here's, again, we're sharing tonight. But also asking, as your orientations are happening, if you're getting any questions, from parents that you can't answer, please make sure, give us a heads up because we're developing these parent communication resources. So it feels pretty continuous.
No, that's great, as long as they're getting the support that they need. And then the last question I just had is that I think part of the reason why this went so long was just that we haven't seen like the full day kindergarten. I think as part of the board, it's taken some time, I think. Like we've gotten updates, but not like a full update like this. So I was just curious if there was any idea of maybe like at the next board meeting or, at the next curriculum meeting to do not another presentation, but just kind of like an update as to it, just so that if you need anything, because I know that like purchasing is coming up, updated numbers for enrollment, that things might change and you might need us to act fast on something. So I don't know if that would work for you, but if that's something that would be beneficial to you, I don't know if we have a problem.
So just so you know, and for all of our new folks, for the most part, a lot of our committees go on summer break as well. So this is the last committee meeting for CCOB. There will be no June or July or August, and then we start back up in September, which I believe is the second week of school, possibly.
Usually-
Do not quote me on that. Denise
So
knows.
the dates have not been advertised yet, so they are being worked on now, and once they're available, they will then be advertised and put in the calendar and so on and so forth.
Well, they are in September, and they are
And it is in
more
September.
closely than that,
Yes.
it is a mystery. But so over the summer, usually the only committees that meet are the business meeting of the full board and the finance and facilities.
So maybe we can talk to
Finance is
the
complete
board
for the
about
summer.
possibly having it as part of either facilities or just as a regular board meeting, just on
Yeah.
a monthly, so that if there's anything that you need addressed, we can get it taken care of so that you have all the support and resources that you guys need.
Great.
So
And
thank you.
Abby
I
had
have
one
one more too.
more. Okay, Abby jumped in first and then Kimberly.
I'm curious in terms of just procedurally, once Dr. McGloin retires, who's the point person?
Dr. Gaudioso.
Dr. Adioso, okay. Thank you.
Great. And Ms. Garrison.
Yes, my final question is, I'm curious, do we have any data, the percentage of entering kindergarten students who've had pre-K versus not?
Sorry.
Yeah, it's on part of the registration.
It is a question, and when you go to orientation, they'll gather that information as well.
Okay.
That'd be really good comparative if we're looking at things to make as a pre-test and a post-test, just like using that one variable to see what effect that has. I think that could be
Yeah,
really
that's-
informative.
Yeah.
Good question to round us out. Now, we have outstayed every single member of the community that was here physically with us. Ms. LaPera, do we have any online comments from people who are watching from home?
At this point in time, we do not. But Dr. Gaudioso was the one that they were sending them to.
Oh.
So we may have outlasted the people that were.
All right, well, I think everyone who stuck with us through this long meeting, I think it was a really important one, and we obviously had a lot of really detailed questions that we did, and I just want to express the gratitude of the board for the team that has been working tirelessly and very, very hard on this, and the team especially that came and fielded an hour and a half of our very in-depth questions. And personally, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Gaudioso, who has dealt with me asking, but how would this change if we had full-day kindergarten in presentations for years and years? And you'll never have to answer that question for me again. So, right, and so just thank you everyone so much. I, just on a personal note, really love this committee and really feel grateful to be leading this committee with some fantastic folks who are really passionate about what we all do. As I said, we will not have this committee over the summer, and so we will over the summer have the dates for board meetings posted, and so you can check back on that. It should be I imagine it will be a Monday night at 7 p.m. in this room at some point in September. Have a great summer.
Thank you again.